The day before the college entrance exam, in the back of the classroom, Su-Yuran held up a bag full of paper cranes, smiling gently and innocently. "Classmates, I had a master bless them. I folded all our admission tickets into paper cranes. This way, we're sure to perform beyond our usual abilities on the exam." I stared at the bag of light, fluttering paper cranes, and my blood froze. Those weren't ordinary paper cranes. They were the college entrance exam admission tickets of over 50 students. In our class, before I could speak, the classmates around me had already erupted in an uproar. "Yuran is so amazing, actually making special prayers for us." "Exactly, so thoughtful, much better than some people with their scheming hearts." All eyes were fixed on me, filled with resentment and disdain. They forgot who lent them the organized error notes to copy during last night's self-study. They had forgotten that after last week's mock exam, it was who had stayed with them, going over each question one by one until late at night. They even forgot that every time there was a monthly exam, it was him who shared his test-taking strategies, raising the class average by several points, just because Su-Yuran had secretly glanced at me earlier and quietly said, "Someone seems unhappy." Jiang Chen, with his arm around Su-Yuran's shoulder, slowly walked up to me, looking down at me from above. He was the class monitor, the captain of the school basketball team, standing at 185 meters tall. And his presence alone carried an intimidating aura. "Lin Wan," his voice was cold and heavy, laced with warning, "you'd better not try anything." I clenched the hem of my clothes tightly, my nails digging deep into my palms, the pain making my whole body tremble, not because of fear, but because the scenes from my past life surged up like a tide. In my previous life, it was also the day before the college entrance exam, and Su-Yuran had also folded a paper crane from her admission ticket. I tried to stop her, but Jiang Chen and his people blocked me in the alley behind the teaching building. He did the same thing, pressing my head down with his hand, pinning me against the cold wall until I couldn't breathe. "Otherwise, you know what I'll do, right?" Jiang Chen said, raising his hand and making a pressing motion. That gesture was exactly the same as when he pressed my head down in my previous life. I couldn't help but shiver, and all the hairs on my body stood on end. My phone was still in Jiang Chen's hand, the screen lighting up repeatedly with incoming calls from our homeroom teacher, Mr. Zhang. Once, twice, 3 times, the phone rang as shrill as a death knell. "Lin Wan, are you jealous of Yuran?" someone shouted at me. "Definitely. Just because she's good at studying, she can't stand Yuran doing good deeds for everyone. How disgusting. She always pretended to be so warm-hearted, but it turns out it was all fake." Insults echoed around me, like needles piercing my heart. Jiang Chen smiled satisfactorily, lifting his hand and calling over 2 boys. It was Zhao Lei and Wang Hao, Jiang Chen's followers, and the ones who most often borrowed my notes. "Keep an eye on her." Jiang Chen's gaze swept over me, filled with disdain. "Don't let her say anything inappropriate, and don't ruin everyone's mood." Zhao Lei immediately nodded and bowed, his face plastered with an ingratiating smile. "Don't worry, Brother Chen. We'll definitely keep a close eye on her." Wang Hao, on the other hand, frowned, his gaze somewhat evasive, yet he still didn't dare to contradict Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen put his arm around Su-Yuran and turned to the others, saying, "Let's go, we're heading to the buffet to relax and have a good time. Tomorrow, let's ace those exams. Hooray." "Thank you, Brother Chen." "Thank you, Yuran." The classmates cheered, crowding around Jiang Chen and Su-Yuran, ready to head out. Zhao Lei pushed me, his tone fierce. "Answer the phone, Teacher Zhang keeps calling. Don't let her suspect anything." I stumbled from his push, steadying myself by holding onto the table. I took a deep breath, pressed the answer button, and held the phone to my ear. Before I could speak, Teacher Zhang's anxious and hurried voice came through the phone. "Lin Wan, you finally answered the phone. I've been trying to call Jiang Chen and Su-Yuran, but I couldn't get through. You need to notify everyone quickly. The college entrance exam registration website has crashed. There are too many people logging in, and printing the admission tickets is extremely difficult. If you find any damage or unclear printing on your admission ticket, contact me immediately. The college entrance exam is tomorrow. We must resolve all issues and not allow any mistakes." Teacher Zhang's voice was loud, and both Zhao Lei and Wang Hao heard it clearly. The arrogance on their faces vanished instantly, replaced by a hint of panic. Wang Hao subconsciously glanced at the bag of paper cranes, his lips moving as if to say something, but after looking at Zhao Lei, he swallowed his words. Zhao Lei also panicked, but quickly forced himself to stay calm, glaring at me with his eyes, signaling me not to say anything rash. I ignored him and softly said into the phone, "Teacher, I understand. I'll inform everyone right away." After hanging up, Zhao Lei immediately leaned in, lowering his voice to threaten me. "Lin Wan, try speaking out of turn and see what happens," Brother Chen said. "The paper cranes have been blessed, so even if the website crashes, it won't affect our college entrance exams." I looked at him coldly. "If the admission ticket is folded into a paper crane and can't be unfolded or gets torn, will you take responsibility?" Zhao Lei was left speechless by my question, his face flushing red. "Don't jinx it, Yuan had them blessed by a master, so it'll definitely be fine." Just then, Su Yuan suddenly stopped walking, turned around, and looked at Jiang Chen with a pitiful expression in her eyes. Her voice was soft, carrying a hint of hesitation, as if she were thinking of everyone. "Class monitor, maybe I should unfold the paper cranes now. I can see everyone is quite anxious, but opening them now might damage the spiritual energy of the blessings. After all, I spent several hours folding these paper cranes, and I even had them specially blessed by a master." As she spoke, her eyes slightly reddened, looking cautious and afraid of upsetting everyone. Jiang Chen's heart instantly ached. He reached out and ruffled her hair, his tone affectionate. "Silly, there's no need to take them apart." He turned around and said loudly to the entire class, "Su Yuan did this for our sake, to pray for our blessings. These paper cranes have all been blessed. Even if the website is completely down, what does it have to do with us? Tomorrow we'll bring the paper cranes to the exam hall. Just unfold them and they'll be ready to use, ensuring a smooth exam." Jiang Chen's words were like a calming pill, instantly soothing the panicked classmates. "That's right, Brother Chen is correct. Yuan's paper cranes have been blessed. There's definitely no problem. It's all my fault for being too anxious. I almost let down Yuan's thoughtful gesture. Lin Wan is just a jinx, deliberately cursing us." Everyone started echoing Jiang Chen again, their gazes toward me filled with even more resentment than before. Zhao Lei glanced at me smugly, as if saying, "See, no one believes you." Wang Hao still kept his head down, his eyes evasive, lost in thought. Jiang Chen had his arm around Su Yuan as they walked out, animatedly telling his classmates about his last basketball game. "In the last match against No. 3 middle school, I dunked on them and totally stunned them, and with just 10 seconds left, I hit a three-pointer to win the game." The whole crowd went wild. The classmates listened with great interest, letting out bursts of admiration from time to time. Zhao Lei and Wang Hao were ordered to stay and watch over me. They leaned against the doorframe, their faces filled with impatience. I sat in my seat, staring intently at the bag of paper cranes, my heart pounding wildly. In my previous life, it was because Su Yuan had folded the exam admission tickets into paper cranes that when they were opened, many people's admission tickets were torn apart. The website crashed again, making it impossible to reprint, and many students missed the college entrance exam, their lives ruined forever. Su Yuan, however, had secretly kept her original admission ticket and successfully took the college entrance exam, getting into a prestigious university. Jiang Chen, because he protected Su Yuan, received a disciplinary record from the school, performed poorly in the college entrance exam, and could only attend an ordinary junior college. Most of those classmates who had insulted and wronged me later ended up working as migrant laborers. When they mentioned Su Yuan, they gritted their teeth in hatred, but there was nothing they could do. As for me, because I tried to stop it in my previous life, I was retaliated against by Jiang Chen and Zhao Lei. I was injured the day before the college entrance exam and couldn't take it. I suffered from depression for several years and eventually died in an accident. This life, I've been reborn, returning to the day before the college entrance exam, to the moment when Su Yuan folded the paper crane from her admission ticket. I will never let the tragedy of my past life happen again. Lin Wan, what are you staring at? Zhao Lei kicked my desk impatiently. "Don't mess around, or Brother Chen won't let you off." I raised my head and stared at him coldly. "Zhao Lei, do you really think that once a paper crane is blessed, everything will be fine? Did Su Yuan tell you that she kept the original admission ticket herself?" Zhao Lei's expression changed drastically, and he snapped sharply. "What nonsense are you talking about? How could Yuan possibly do such a thing? Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you can ask Su Yuan and find out." My tone was calm, yet filled with unwavering confidence. Wang Hao suddenly looked up, his eyes filled with confusion. "Lin Wan, are you telling the truth? Yuan, she?" "Wang Hao, don't listen to her nonsense." Zhao Lei interrupted him. "Lin Wan is just jealous of you, Ran, and deliberately trying to drive a wedge between us." Wang Hao frowned, saying nothing more, but the confusion in his eyes grew deeper. Unlike Zhao Lei, he wasn't inherently bad, though he followed Jiang Chen. he was simply too afraid of him. In his previous life, Wang Hao had also been deceived by Su Yuran. His admission ticket was torn, preventing him from taking the college entrance exam, and he later lived a life full of regrets. I looked at Wang Hao and said softly, "Wang Hao, think about it yourself. When Su Yuran was folding paper cranes, did she avoid you and Zhao Lei? Did she say she wanted to fold one separately for Jiang Chen, making it more exquisite?" Wang Hao's eyes widened suddenly, and a shocked expression appeared on his face. How did you know? Just now, when Su Yuran was folding paper cranes, she indeed avoided him and Zhao Lei, secretly folding one for Jiang Chen and even saying she wanted to bless it separately. Zhao Lei also panicked, but still insisted. So what? Yuran just wanted to give Brother Chen a surprise. A surprise? I sneered. Is it a surprise, or did she already have a backup plan? If she really cared about everyone, why didn't she tell us that the website crashed and the admission tickets might need to be reprinted? Why did she fold the admission ticket into a paper crane, knowing it might get damaged after folding? My barrage of questions left Zhao Lei speechless, his face turning pale and then flushed. Wang Hao's expression shifted from confusion to suspicion as he looked at the bag of paper cranes. His eyes filled with unease. Just then, the classroom door was flung open. Teacher Zhang rushed in, sweating profusely and panting heavily, his face a mix of anxiety and anger. "Stop right there." Teacher Zhang's voice was so loud that it silenced the entire classroom. Jiang Chen, Su Yuran, and the other students who were about to leave the classroom all stopped in their tracks, looking at Teacher Zhang in shock. "Teacher Zhang, what are you doing here?" Su Yuran immediately stepped forward, her face beaming with a sweet smile. "We were just about to grab something to eat and relax a bit." Teacher Zhang ignored her, his gaze sweeping across the class, and said sternly, "Take out your admission tickets. I need to check them." The classmates instantly panicked, looking at each other, but no one dared to move. Jiang Chen's face also changed. He instinctively glanced at Su Yuran, a hint of panic flashing in his eyes, but he quickly composed himself, turned sharply, and rushed over to me, grabbing my neck. "It's you again." Jiang Chen's eyes were fierce, his tone filled with rage. "You're the one who snitched, aren't you?" The pressure around my neck grew stronger, and I couldn't breathe, my face instantly turning bright red. The suffocating feeling from my past life returned, and I seemed to see Jiang Chen's hideous face once again. "Jiang Chen, let go." Teacher Zhang suddenly slammed his hand on the podium, his voice thunderous. "Have you gone mad?" Jiang Chen stiffened, and the force gripping my neck slowly loosened. I slumped in my chair, coughing violently until tears streamed from my eyes. Jiang Chen shot me a hateful glance, his eyes filled with resentment and anger, before turning and walking back to his seat. "Where are your admission tickets?" Teacher Zhang asked again, his tone even more severe. "Why hasn't anyone taken them out after all this time?" The classroom was deathly silent, with only the sound of my coughing cutting through the stillness, unusually clear. Teacher Zhang's gaze swept over each of the students' faces, finally settling on the bag of paper cranes in Su Yuran's arms. Her brows furrowed sharply, and she quickly stepped down from the podium, her voice filled with disbelief. You folded your admission tickets into paper cranes." Su Yuran's face turned pale instantly, her eyes filled with panic, yet she still forced a calm smile and said, "Teacher Zhang, please don't be angry. I wanted to bring good luck to everyone. This was blessed by a master. I hope we all perform beyond our usual best in tomorrow's college entrance exam. I meant no harm, I was just trying to be kind." Teacher Zhang trembled with anger, pointing at Su Yuran, unable to speak for a long time. "Is this what you call kindness? You're harming everyone. What is the college entrance exam admission ticket? It's your proof of eligibility to take the exam. How could you casually fold it into a paper crane? Now the website has crashed, and we can't reprint it. If the admission tickets are damaged, how will you take the college entrance exam tomorrow?" Mr. Zhang's words exploded like a thunderclap in the classroom. The students instantly panicked, their relaxed and joyful expressions vanishing completely, replaced by fear and chaos. "What? The website crashed. We can't reprint it. What do we do? My admission ticket was folded into a paper crane. If it gets damaged when I unfold it, I won't be able to take the college entrance exam." "Su Yuran, how could you do this? You've ruined everything for us." The classmates' tone instantly shifted from gratitude to accusation and anger. Su Yuran turned pale with fear, tears welling up immediately as she looked at Jiang Chen with a hurt expression. "Class monitor, I didn't mean to. I was really trying to do what's best for everyone." Jiang Chen, seeing Su Yuran's pitiful appearance, felt an overwhelming urge to protect her. He immediately stood up and stepped in front of her. "Everyone, stop arguing," Jiang Chen shouted loudly. "Su Yuan meant well too, she didn't intend to harm us, the paper crane has been blessed, so opening it will definitely be fine, it won't get damaged, even if it breaks down, we'll just figure out another way, there's definitely a solution." "Resolve? How can we resolve it?" Teacher Zhang's voice trembled with anger. "The website crashed, and we can't print the admission tickets at all now. I just called the admissions office, and they said I can only go to the county admissions office with my ID card to get a replacement, and I need to do it as soon as possible. It's already past 4 p.m., and the admissions office closes at 5, if we wait any longer, it'll be too late." Upon hearing this, the classmates grew even more panicked, each of them anxiously pacing around. "What should we do? My home is far from the admissions office, if I go now, I definitely won't make it in time. Su Yuan, you owe me my college entrance exam, you owe me my future. I told you we shouldn't fold it into a paper crane, but you insisted, now look, we're all doomed." Zhao Lei panicked too, grabbing Jiang Chen's arm and saying urgently, "Chen, what do we do? Is it really too late to get a replacement?" Jiang Chen's expression was also grim. He looked at Su Yuan, a flicker of doubt appearing in his eyes for the first time. "Yuan, did you really have a master bless it? Is it really okay to open it?" Su Yuan was flustered by Jiang Chen's question, her eyes darting away as she stammered, Of course I looked. It's just, the spiritual power might be damaged, but the exam admission ticket, it shouldn't be ruined." Her tone was noticeably less firm than before. I slowly stood up, coughed a few times, looked at my classmates, and said softly, "It's no use talking about this now, hurry up and unfold the paper crane to see if the exam admission ticket is damaged. If it's not damaged, quickly take your admission ticket and ID to the admissions office to get a backup or confirm whether it can still be used. If it's damaged, go to the admissions office right now, there's still a chance to get a replacement." Hearing my words, the classmates instantly reacted, gathering around Su Yuan and demanding she open the paper crane. Open it quickly, let's check if my admission ticket is damaged." "Su Yuan, stop dawdling, or we'll really be too late." Forced into a corner, Su Yuan reluctantly opened the bag and took out the paper cranes, one by one, unfolding them. The first one she opened revealed a girl's admission ticket. The paper was crumpled, with a noticeable tear along the edge, and the writing on it was somewhat blurred. "My admission ticket is ruined," the girl screamed, tears instantly streaming down her face. "What should I do? I can't take the college entrance exam tomorrow." Then, the second, third, more and more students began to open their paper cranes. Some admission tickets had a corner torn off, some had smudged handwriting, and others were folded so tightly they couldn't be unfolded. Only a few people had admission tickets that remained completely intact. In the classroom, cries, curses, and complaints mingled together, creating a chaotic mess. "Su Yuan, you liar, you never had the master bless it, you did it on purpose, you want to ruin our chances at the college entrance exam so only you can take it. I'm going to find your parents, I'm going to report you." Su Yuan trembled all over with fear, crouching on the ground, hugging her head with both hands, crying uncontrollably. "I didn't mean to, I really didn't mean to." Jiang Chen stared at the scene before him, his face ashen. He walked up to Su Yuan, his voice cold. "Su Yuan, tell me, what exactly is going on here? Did you know all along that folding the admission ticket into a paper crane would ruin it? Did you do that on purpose?" Su Yuan lifted her head, her eyes blurred with tears as she looked at Jiang Chen, shaking her head. "I didn't, I really didn't." Just then, Zhao Lei suddenly screamed, "Chen Gu, look, Su Yuan's admission ticket." Everyone's eyes turned sharply toward the object in Zhao Lei's hand. It was a perfectly intact exam admission ticket, smooth, clean, without a single crease, exactly Su Yuan's. "What's going on?" Jiang Chen's eyes instantly turned fierce as he snatched the exam admission ticket. "Why isn't your admission ticket folded into a paper crane?" Su Yuan's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Unable to utter a single word, she could only cry uncontrollably. The truth was already self-evident. She hadn't folded her own admission ticket into a paper crane at all. She had folded someone else's, deliberately trying to harm everyone. "Su Yuan, you've gone too far." Jiang Chen was so enraged that he trembled with anger, shoving Su Yuan to the ground. "I was blind to keep protecting you all this time. You actually deliberately harmed everyone. What were you thinking?" Su Yuan sat on the ground, crying and shouting, "I didn't mean to, I was just afraid Wouldn't do well on the exam. I heard that folding paper cranes to pray for blessings could make me do well and make others do poorly. So I just lost my head for a moment and did something foolish. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Can you forgive me, please? Forgive you? A boy angrily stepped forward, pointing at Soo-yuran. You've made it possible that we might not be able to take the college entrance exam, ruining our future. How can we forgive you? That's right, people like you have such bad hearts. You don't deserve to be our classmate. Teacher Zhang took a deep breath, trying to calm his emotions, and said loudly, everyone, stop arguing. Now is not the time for quarrels. Students whose admission tickets are not damaged, please quickly take your admission ticket and ID card and follow me to the admissions office to confirm whether they can be used normally, and also to get a backup copy. Students whose admission tickets are damaged, quickly take your ID cards and follow me to the admissions office to see if we can get them reissued. There's still time now, let's hurry up and go, we can't afford any more delays. Upon hearing Teacher Zhang's words, the students immediately quieted down, picked up their ID cards and the torn admission tickets, and followed Teacher Zhang as they headed out. Zhao Lei also hurriedly grabbed his things and followed along. Before leaving, he shot Soo-yuran a fierce glare. Wang Hao walked up to me, his face filled with guilt. Lin Wan, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have wronged you before, and I shouldn't have helped Jiang Chen bully you. I shook my head and said softly, now isn't the time to say sorry. Hurry and go to the admissions office with the teacher, don't delay. Wang Hao nodded, murmured, thank you, and hurried after them. In the classroom, only I, Jiang Chen, and Soo-yuran remained. Soo-yuran sat on the ground, still sobbing uncontrollably. Jiang Chen stood beside her, his face ashen, his gaze on Soo-yuran filled with complex emotions, anger, disappointment, and a hint of resentment. I walked up to Soo-yuran, looking down at her with a calm tone. Soo-yuran, do you really think crying like this will get you into a good university? Do you think hurting others will make your wishes come true? Soo-yuran lifted her head, tears blurring her vision as she looked at me. I'm just so scared. My grades aren't good. I'm afraid I won't get into college. I'm afraid my parents will be disappointed. So you chose to hurt others, I sneered. Have you ever thought about the classmates you've harmed? They've worked hard for 12 years. 2. They want to get into good universities, and they don't want their efforts to go to waste. What you're doing not only ruins their futures, but also destroys your own. Jiang Chen stepped beside me, his voice low. Lin Wan, I'm sorry, in the past life, I was wrong. I shouldn't have bullied you, shouldn't have protected Soo-yuran, shouldn't have ruined your college entrance exam. I was stunned, turning to look at Jiang Chen. You also came back to life. Jiang Chen nodded, his face filled with guilt and remorse. Yes, I also came back to life. Returning to this morning, I thought that in this life, I could protect Soo-yuran and also ensure everyone could smoothly take the college entrance exam. I never expected to be deceived by her again. In my previous life, because I protected her, I received a disciplinary record from the school, failed the college entrance exam, and could only go to a junior college. Later, when I learned the whole truth, I always felt deep regret and guilt. I regret how foolish and blind I was back then, regret that I bullied you, and regret that I ruined so many classmates' futures. Hearing Jiang Chen's words, Soo-yuran cried even harder. Jiang Chen, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Can you forgive me one more time? Jiang Chen gave her a cold glance, his tone icy. I won't forgive you again. You must bear the consequences of your own actions. Let's go, Lin Wan. We should also head to the admissions office and see if we can help everyone. I nodded and followed Jiang Chen out of the classroom. Soo-yuran sat alone in the empty classroom, her sobs growing quieter until only silent hiccups remained. When we arrived at the admissions office, Teacher Zhang was leading the students in line to reissue their admission tickets. The staff at the admissions office were also working overtime to assist everyone, their faces filled with busyness. Jiang Chen took the initiative to step forward, helping Teacher Zhang maintain order and assisting the classmates in organizing their materials. I also joined in to help, telling the classmates how to fill out the forms and what materials they needed to prepare. When Zhao Lei saw us, his face was filled with guilt. He took the initiative to come over and helped us with the work. Lin Wan, Jiang Chen, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have followed Jiang Chen in bullying you before, and I shouldn't have believed Soo-yuran's nonsense. Jiang Chen patted his shoulder, his tone softening a bit. It's good that you know you were wrong. Now, help out properly and don't cause any more trouble. Zhao Lei nodded, letting out a firm and threw himself into helping with even more effort. Wang Hao also pitched in nearby, occasionally giving me an apologetic smile and whispering a few, "I'm sorry," and so, we worked until a little past 7 in the evening, and finally, all the students' exam admission tickets were reissued. Some students had only slightly damaged admission tickets, and after confirmation by the staff, they were told they could still be used normally, so no reissuing was necessary. Other students had severely damaged admission tickets, and the staff reprinted new ones for them. Holding the brand new admission tickets in their hands, the students finally showed long-lost smiles on their faces. "Great, finally, they've been reissued, and we can take the college entrance exam normally tomorrow. Thank you, Teacher Zhang. Thank you, Lin Wan. Thank you, Jiang Chen." "Lin Wan, we're sorry, we shouldn't have wronged you or scolded you before. Can you forgive us?" My classmates gathered around me, each one apologizing with faces full of guilt. I smiled and shook my head. "It's okay, as long as everyone can take the college entrance exam smoothly, that's all that matters. Let's not dwell on the past. What matters most now is to do well on tomorrow's exam." Teacher Zhang looked at us, a gratified smile spreading across his face. "All right, everyone has worked hard, go home and get some rest. Rest well, adjust your mindset, and give it your best shot tomorrow. Don't let your 12 years of hard work go to waste." "Understood, thank you, Teacher Zhang," the students replied in unison, expressing their gratitude before heading home one by one. Zhao Lei and Wang Hao also said goodbye to me and Jiang Chen, then hurried home. In the classroom, only the three of us remained, me, Jiang Chen, and Teacher Zhang. Teacher Zhang looked at me, his face filled with guilt. "Lin Wan, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you before and didn't believe you. If it weren't for you, the students might have truly missed the college entrance exam." "Thank you," I shook my head and said with a smile. "Teacher Zhang, please don't say that, it's what I should do." "What do you plan to do about Su Yuran?" Jiang Chen asked softly. Teacher Zhang sighed, his tone heavy. "I've already called her parents and told them everything that happened. Her parents are also very remorseful and said they will discipline her properly. As for the school, after the college entrance exam, she will be given a disciplinary record and it will be entered into her file. Her actions this time were too extreme. She not only harmed her classmates but also ruined herself." I nodded without saying a word. Su Yuran's ending was of her own choosing, and she has no one else to blame. "All right, you should head home and rest now," Teacher Zhang said with a smile. "Do your best on the exam tomorrow. I believe in you. You'll definitely achieve great results." "Thank you, Teacher Zhang," Jiang Chen and I said in unison before turning and walking out of the school. The evening breeze brushed against our faces, cool and refreshing. The setting sun stretched our shadows long and far behind us. "Lin Wan," Jiang Chen stopped walking, turned around, and looked at me, his face filled with guilt. "In my past life, I wronged you. In this life, I want to make it up to you. I know that no amount of apologies can make up for the harm I caused you before, but I truly know I was wrong." I looked at Jiang Chen, and in my heart, there was no longer the resentment from my past life, only calmness remained. "Let's not bring up the past anymore," I smiled. "In this life, let's both start over, study hard, and get into our ideal universities." Jiang Chen was taken aback for a moment, then nodded, a relieved smile spreading across his face. "All right, let's start over. Tomorrow, let's work hard together and get good grades." "All right," I nodded, a smile also appearing on my face. We walked side by side on the way home, not saying much more, but the atmosphere was relaxed. I know that the tragedy of my past life has already been rewritten by me. In this life, I will not only smoothly take the college entrance exam and get into my ideal university, but I will also protect the people around me, ensuring they are no longer harmed. When I got home, I finished washing up, returned to my room, took out my study materials, and began reviewing them seriously. Even though the college entrance exam is tomorrow, I am not nervous at all. My efforts in the previous life were not in vain. In this life, I have enough confidence to achieve good results. It was late at night. I put down my study materials, lay on the bed, and soon fell asleep. Had a dream in which I was admitted to my dream university, laughing and chatting with my classmates, free from the shadows of my past life. The next day, the college entrance exam took place as scheduled. I got up early, packed my things, took my admission ticket and ID card, and arrived at the exam hall. Jiang Chen, Zhao Lei, Wang Hao, and other classmates also arrived at the exam hall one after another. When they saw me, everyone greeted me proactively, their faces full of friendly smiles. "Lin Wan, good morning, Lin Wan, let's do our best together today." I smiled and nodded. Responding to everyone's greetings, Jiang Chen walked beside me and handed me a bottle of mineral water. Don't be nervous, just perform normally. Yeah, you too. I took the water bottle and replied with a smile. Su Yuran also arrived, her eyes red, her face filled with exhaustion and guilt. She walked up to me and said softly, Lin Wan, I'm sorry, I know I was wrong, wishing you all the best for your college entrance exam. I looked at her and said gently, focus on your exam, let the past go. Su Yuran nodded, tears welling up in her eyes, then turned and walked into the examination hall. The exam bell rang, and we entered the examination room, sat at our seats, and began the college entrance exam. The test papers were handed out, and I took a deep breath, carefully reading the questions and answering them. The knowledge points from my past life, along with the efforts of this life, clearly surfaced in my mind. I wrote carefully, stroke by stroke, treating each question with seriousness. Not daring to be the least bit careless, Jiang Chen sat diagonally in front of me, also answering the questions seriously, with a focused expression. Zhao Lei and Wang Hao were also answering the questions seriously, their faces full of concentration. The 2-day college entrance exam ended quickly. The moment I walked out of the exam hall, all the pressure vanished into thin air. The students gathered together, discussing the exam questions with relaxed smiles on their faces. Finally, the exams are over. It was so easy. I feel like I did pretty well this time. Should be able to get into my ideal university. Lin Wan, how did you do? You must have aced it, right? I smiled and said, not bad, just my usual performance. I hope I can get into my ideal university. Jiang Chen walked over to me and said with a smile, I believe in you, you can definitely do it. You too, I'm sure you'll get into a good university. I replied with a smile. After the college entrance exam ended, we faced a long period of waiting. During the days waiting for results, my classmates and I would occasionally go out together to relax and unwind. Jiang Chen, Zhao Lei, and Wang Hao often invite me to go to the library to read books or take walks in the park. Our relationship has become increasingly harmonious, with none of the conflicts and contradictions from our past lives. Su Yuran rarely contacts us. I heard that because of this incident, she received a disciplinary record from the school, and her parents were very disappointed in her, making her reflect on her actions at home. I didn't pay attention to her situation anymore. Everyone has to take responsibility for their own actions, and her outcome was a choice she made herself. Finally, the college entrance exam results were released. With a mix of nervousness and anticipation, I opened the inquiry page. When I saw my results, I couldn't help but smile. I had been admitted to my dream university, a prestigious one in Jing City, with a score 50 points above the admission threshold. Soon, my classmates' results also came out. Jiang Chen was admitted to a decent polytechnic university, though not a top-tier school. It was still his ideal choice. Zhao Lei and Wang Hao also got into their desired universities, and although they were just ordinary undergraduate programs, they were still very happy. The other classmates also performed well in their exams, with most of them getting into their ideal universities. Only Su Yuran's college entrance exam results were far from ideal, not even reaching the threshold for vocational colleges. It is said that she plans to repeat her final year of high school and retake the college entrance exam to make up for her shortcomings. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. Gu Qiyan fell in love with a bar girl and insisted on dumping me, his fiancé and a scientific genius. In my past life, I loved him. To secure his inheritance, I made him cut ties with the bar girl, only to find them caught in a tragic cycle of her running and him chasing. 99 times over, their child even ran away midway, leaving the waitress infertile for life. 5 years later, after he took control of the Gu family, on the eve of spending $1 billion to marry the waitress, he crushed me to death with a 100-carat diamond. And she doesn't want to see you. A life for a life. You only deserve to go down and serve our child as a maid. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day he publicly called off our engagement. Gu Qiyan will never marry a boring woman who spends all day in the lab. The light from the crystal chandelier was dazzling, and Gu Qian's voice echoed through every corner of the banquet hall via the microphone. He stood on the stage, pointing at me, his lips curled with undisguised disgust and contempt. The one I love isn't she. She is pure, kind, like a daughter plant that needs to be cared for. Not you, Sheng Anxian, a so-called genius who is cold and only deals with data and test tubes. Behind him, the woman in the white dress, her eyes red-rimmed, pitifully clutching the hem of His clothes, was Lin and she, the woman who sold drinks at the Charm nightclub, the one who had haunted his thoughts day and night. The room erupted into chaos in an instant. Xing Anxian, that scientific research genius from the Xing family, not even as good as a drink seller. TSK, I heard she worked for months on Gu Qian's new energy project, nearly going blind from exhaustion, and yet, she's not much to look at anyway, always wearing that stern face. How could she compare to Lin and she? Who knows how to charm? Men, after all, prefer a woman who understands them. The Xing family's reputation has really taken a hit this time. Countless gazes, some sympathetic, some disdainful, some gloating, pierced through me like needles. I stood there, still holding the champagne I had prepared to celebrate the project's success, my fingertips icy cold. This scene feels all too familiar. In my past life, it was right here, under these same gazes, that I desperately pleaded with him not to break off the engagement, for the sake of his inheritance, for the dignity of the Gu and Xing families. I begged him to leave Lin and she, and what was the result? What I received in return was his intensified humiliation. The 99 times they staged the farce of, she runs, he chases, and the child that was accidentally lost, blamed on me, leading to Lin and she's lifelong infertility. It was 5 years later, on the eve of him taking control of the Gu group and marrying Lin and she with $1 billion dowry, that 100-carat diamond was hurled at my forehead. When he doesn't want to see you, a life for a life, you only deserve to go down and serve our child as a maid. My temples seemed to throb faintly again, the memory of that cold, hard touch and the despair of life slipping away etched deep into my bones. I took a light breath and, under Gu Qian's smug, triumphant gaze as he awaited my breakdown and tears, lifted my head. There was none of the pain or humiliation he had anticipated on my face, only a chilling calm. Finished, I spoke, my voice not loud, yet strangely silencing the clamor in the room. For a moment, Gu Qian was taken aback, his brows furrowing. Xing Anxian, why are you pretending to be calm? I know you love me to death, but feelings can't be forced. I cut him off directly, took out my phone from my clutch, and dialed a number right in front of him, putting it on speakerphone. Beep, beep. After a few rings, a dignified and steady male voice came through the receiver, echoing through the silent banquet hall. And Xian, calling at this hour, is there good news about the project? It was Chairman Gu Tingfeng. Everyone held their breath. I watched Gu Qian's face instantly shift to one of shock and uncertainty, slowly curling the corners of my lips, my voice clear and deliberate, word by word. Uncle Gu, the project was a great success. However, there's something more important now. Your son, Gu Qian, publicly announced his intention to marry a nightclub bartender and unilaterally broke off his engagement with me, claiming he'd rather have that bartender than me, the daughter of the Xing family and the future heir's wife of the Gu family. There was a 2-second silence on the other end of the line, followed by a pressure so low it seemed to transmit through the airwaves. Where is he? Put him on the phone. Gu Qian's face turned pale, and he instinctively tried to rush over and snatch the phone. I sidestepped, my gaze sweeping over the guests below, whose expressions shifted instantly, from mockery to shock, then to speculation. Then, I dropped the bombshell. No need, Uncle Gu, since Gu Qian insists on humiliating me and our Xing family with a wine-selling girl, I demand a change in the marriage candidate. I paused, feeling my heart beat powerfully in my chest, carrying the thrill of my first counterattack since rebirth. I agree to the marriage alliance, but the partner should be changed to your eldest son, Gu Qi, the heir of the Gu family. My voice was resolute, carrying an undeniable force, should also be replaced by someone else. Boom, the entire banquet hall erupted into chaos. What? Xing Anxian is going to marry that vegetative patient Gu Qi? She's insane, she must have gone mad from the shock. Gu Qi has been lying there for 3 years, whether he can even wake up is a question. She's going to be a living widow, just to spite someone. Is it worth it? Will the Xing family agree? Gu Qian seemed to have heard the biggest joke of his life, laughing hysterically as he pointed at my nose. Xing Anxian, have you lost your mind? Marry my brother, that living corpse? Ha ha ha, you'd rather stay with a vegetable than admit you lost to Enshi. You're nothing but a pathetic worm through and through. Lin and she also took the opportunity to nestle into Gu Qian's arms, looking at me timidly with tears still hanging at the corners of her eyes. Miss Sheng, how could you do this? Young Master Qi is already so pitiful, how could you still take advantage of him? I stared at this despicable pair, the hypocritical act they put on in front of me in my past life overlapping with this moment. making me so disgusted I almost vomited. On the other end of the phone, Gu Dingfeng's voice sounded again, carrying a hint of imperceptible caution and a certain kind of loosening after weighing the options. Anxian, are you sure, you know Qi's condition? I'm certain, I didn't hesitate in the slightest. Compared to a successor who has a barmaid on his mind, who mixes personal matters with business, and who might lead the Gu family into unpredictable risks, a stable marriage alliance that also secures the full support of the Xing family is clearly the better choice for the Gu Corporation, isn't it, Uncle Gu? I went straight for the jugular. Gu Tingfeng was a businessman, one who placed immense value on profit and family reputation. Gu Qian's actions today had already crossed his bottom line. Sure enough, Gu Tingfeng fell silent. This silence was tantamount to tacit agreement. Gu Qian's laughter abruptly ceased. He shouted into my phone in disbelief, "Dad, you can't listen to her nonsense. She's just trying to get back at me. Shut up." Gu Dingfeng's furious roar came through the receiver. "Gu Qiyan, get your ass back here right now, and bring that shameless woman with you." The call was abruptly ended. The busy tone beeped incessantly, yet it sounded like a resounding slap across the faces of Gu Qiyan and Lin Enshi. Gu Qian's face was ashen, his gaze dark and menacing as he stared at me, as if he wanted to devour me whole. Lin Enshi, on the other hand, looked terrified, clutching Gu Qian's arm tightly as she began to sob softly. I didn't spare them another glance and walked straight toward the entrance of the banquet hall. As I passed, the crowd automatically parted to make way for me. Those gazes had shifted from initial sympathy and disdain to shock, inquiry, and even a hint of awe. My God, Xing Anxian is serious. This move is ruthless, cutting off the firewood from under the cauldron. Gu Qiyan is in big trouble now. Chairman Gu values face the most. Perhaps, the Gu family is about to face a major upheaval. I stopped at the door, not turning back, my voice soft yet clear enough for the deathly silent crowd behind me to hear. "Second young Master Gu, don't forget to inform your innocent and kind daughter Flower, get ready to call me sister in-law." The room fell into a dead silence. Gu Qiyan snapped back to his senses, growling at me, "Xing Anxian, have you lost your mind? Marry my brother, he's been lying there for 3 years, he's practically a living corpse. Are you so desperate to get back at me that you'd condemn yourself to a living widowhood?" Lin Enshi tugged at his sleeve, her eyes brimming with tears. "Qiyan, don't be like this, Miss Sheng might just be acting on impulse." I couldn't be bothered to watch their little performance and turned to leave. "Stop." Gu Qiyan tried to block me. I turned back, giving him a cold glance. "Second young Master Gu, if you touch me again, I can't guarantee you'll be able to enter the Gu Corporation building tomorrow." His hand froze mid-air. I have evidence of his previous project violations. In my past life, I was soft-hearted and never used it, but this time, I won't be so polite. The eyes of the surrounding guests shifted, turning from amusement to careful calculation. Is Xing Anxian for real? Does she have something on Gu Qiyan? Looks like second young Master Gu has hit a brick wall. I ignored the gossip and left directly. The next day, Gu Tingfeng personally called me. "Ancienne, I've thought about what you said yesterday. Qi truly wrongs you, but if you insist, the Gu family welcomes you." I knew what he was scheming. The Xing family behind me, along with the research project in my hands, were too important to the Gu Corporation, trading a comatose son for a powerful ally and stable inheritance rights. He was making a profit. "I don't feel wronged, Uncle Gu," I said, "but I have 2 conditions. First, after I marry Gu Qi, all the shares and assets under his name will be managed by me on his behalf. Second, Gu Qiyan must leave the core of the group and go to the overseas branch. He is not to return to the country unless summoned." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. Fine. After hanging up, I smiled. Gu Tingfeng was indeed ruthless enough. For the sake of profit, he was willing to abandon his younger son without a second thought. The news spread, causing an uproar. Gu Qiyan rushed to my house, his eyes bloodshot. "Xing Anxian, you're ruthless. You want to exile me." In your dreams. I sat on the sofa, leisurely flipping through Gu Qi's medical report. "It's not exile, it's giving you a chance to fly away with your true love." "What, not willing? Or are you reluctant to part with the wealth and glory of the Gu family?" He choked, his face turning pale and then ashen. Lin Enshi had followed him and stood behind him, speaking in a fragile voice. "Miss Sheng, please let Qiyan go. It's all my fault." I raised my eyes, my gaze sharp as a blade. "Of course it's your fault. What else could it be?" Her face paled, and tears welled up in her eyes. "And one more thing," I added, "from now on, Please address me as Ms. Sheng, or the eldest young mistress. Gu Qiyan trembled with rage, pointing at me. You think marrying my brother can bring me down? Let me tell you, as long as I'm in the Gu Corporation for a single day, don't even think about gloating. Is that so? I chuckled lightly. Then you'd better make the most of your time and take a few more good looks at the Gu Corporation building. Next Monday, you'll be reporting to the African branch. What? Gu Qiyan completely lost control. Impossible. My father wouldn't. The transfer order has already been issued. I cut him off. Chairman Gu personally signed it. Would you like me to fax you a copy? He froze in place, as if all his strength had been drained. Lin and she panicked, clutching him tightly. Qiyan, Africa, I won't go. It's so chaotic there. I'm scared. Watching this pair of star-crossed lovers clinging to each other, I couldn't help but feel a sense of irony. Don't want to go. I raised an eyebrow. That's fine too. Announce right now that you're giving up all inheritance rights from the Gu family. Sever all ties with them, and take your true love to work on a construction site. I'll have the transfer order revoked immediately. Gu Qiyan stared at me fiercely, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Of course, he couldn't say anything. How could he possibly give up the wealth and status of the Gu family? It seems your love still needs money to nourish it. I stood up and issued the order to leave. Take care on your way out. There are a lot of mosquitoes in Africa, so remember to bring mosquito repellent. Gu Qiyan was dragged away by Lin and she, who was crying. Not long after they left, I received a call from the butler of the Gu family's old mansion. Miss Sheng, the eldest young master. His finger just twitched a moment ago. I gripped the phone, my heart suddenly leaping. Gu Qi, are you about to wake up 2 whole months earlier than the previous life? It seems my rebirth has truly changed some things. A week later, my wedding to Gu Qi was held quietly. Gu Qiyan was still forced onto a plane to Africa, with Lin and she tearfully following along. At the wedding venue, only Gu Tingfeng and a few family elders were present. Wearing my wedding dress, I stood by the bedside of the unconscious Gu Qi and completed the ceremony. No one had high hopes for this marriage, all waiting to see how long I, the auspicious bride, brought in to ward off misfortune, would last. On the 3rd day after the wedding, I moved into Gu Qi's villa and took full charge of his affairs. His private lawyer and medical team were initially wary of me, but I quickly won them over with my precise business judgment and an understanding of Gu Qi's condition that far exceeded the ordinary. I flipped through the last project Gu Qi handled before falling into a coma, the acquisition of a piece of land with excellent prospects but currently at a deadlock. In my previous life, Gu Qiyan had relied on the follow-up plan he tricked out of me to overcome this tough challenge and win the favor of the board. Now, he had nothing to do with it. I gathered the project team, pulling several all-nighters in a row to revise the plan, and personally met with key figures. The resistance was immense, with many paying lip service while secretly waiting to see me fail. Madam, the other party's representative is very difficult to deal with. They're refusing to budge. I've heard that the second young master in Africa has been remotely contacting them all along, trying to cut us off. I set down my coffee cup, my eyes turning icy cold. Tell them I'll be there in person tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon. Also, anonymously send a copy of the evidence regarding Gu Qian's private contact with them and his promise of improper benefits to Chairman Gu. The assistant was taken aback but immediately complied. The next day, I arrived punctually at the negotiation meeting room. The other party's representative was arrogant and made things difficult in every possible way. Miss Sheng, it's not that I'm being disrespectful, but the terms offered by your Gu group truly lack sincerity. Without hesitation, I turned on the projector and pulled up a document. Mr. Zhang, that piece of land in the east of the city that you've been holding onto for 5 years, the zoning plan still hasn't been approved, has it? His expression shifted slightly. What if I told you that next month, a new subway route will be announced, and it just happens to run right past your land? I smiled faintly, pulling up another set of data. Also, your company's financial report from last quarter seems to have a few minor issues. Would you like me to put in a good word for you with the Securities Regulatory Commission? Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his confidence instantly deflated. Miss Sheng, what do you mean by this? It means, either sign this contract according to my terms, and we can all prosper together in harmony, or, I retract my smile, my gaze sharpening, I guarantee that your land will never see the light of day again, and your company will run into a bit of trouble. Half an hour later, the contract was signed. I walked out of the conference room with the signed documents in hand, just as Gu Dingfeng's furious call came through. That scoundrel Gu Qiyan, How dare he pull such a stunt behind my back, Anxian, thank goodness for you this time, just doing my job, Dad, I replied calmly, after hanging up the phone. I knew Gu Qian's days in Africa were about to get much tougher, as news of the project's success spread, the internal perception of me within the Gu Corporation began to shift. I never expected this eldest young mistress to have some real skills, much better than that second young master who only knows how to party at nightclubs. I turned a deaf ear to it all. Every day, aside from handling official duties, I stayed by Gu Qi's bedside, reading financial news or simply sitting quietly. The doctor said that talking more to the patient would aid in recovery. I don't know if he can hear me, but I need to say it, to speak of my plans, my hatred, and my laughable past life. Gu Qi, you'd better wake up soon, I whispered, gazing at his sleeping profile. Watching your brother's misfortune alone is a bit too lonely. His finger twitched again. 2 months later, I had almost completely taken control of Gu Qi's businesses and firmly established myself on the Gu Corporation's board of directors. Gu Qian was struggling in Africa, and every time he tried to return to the country, I blocked him. Lin and she couldn't bear the hardship and started posting vague, self-pitying content on social media, hinting that I had forced them out. The trolls started stirring up trouble, saying I was a usurper with a wicked heart. I had my lawyer send a warning letter directly to her email, attaching a few statements showing her wild shopping sprees in Africa using Gu Qian's supplementary card. Miss Lin, if you keep spouting nonsense online, the next thing you'll receive in the mail will be a court summons. She instantly fell silent, just as I thought Gu Qi would be sleeping for a while longer. One late night, while I was handling documents in the study, I received a panicked call from the caregiver. Madam, the young master, he opened his eyes. The pen in my hand fell onto the desk. When I rushed to the ward, the doctor was conducting an examination. Gu Qi was leaning against the headboard, his face pale, but his eyes were unusually clear and sharp, carrying the confusion and scrutiny of someone who had just woken up. He scanned everyone present and finally, his gaze settled on me. He looked at me for a long time, so long that the air seemed to almost freeze. Then, he slightly furrowed his brow, his voice hoarse and low from long disuse. Who are you? I stood at the doorway of the hospital room, a few steps away, meeting his eyes that were just waking up yet already sharp. The air grew still, the doctor and nurse not daring to breathe. Who am I? I sneered inwardly, but on the surface, I picked up the water glass beside me, walked naturally to the bedside, and handed it to him. Sheng Anxian, I said, looking at him and clearly enunciating the 3 words, your legal wife, currently managing all the assets under your name, and the one who just sent your useless younger brother and his beloved wine-selling woman off to Africa together. His hand, holding the water glass, paused mid-air, the scrutiny in his eyes instantly shifting to shock, followed by a deeper, more probing gaze. Gu Qian went to Africa. His voice was hoarse, tinged with disbelief. Dad personally signed the transfer order, I said flatly, as if commenting on the weather. He humiliated both the Gu and Xing families in front of the entire city's elite by breaking off the engagement for a wine cellar. He had to pay some price. Gu Qi leaned against the headboard, slowly sipping water, but his gaze remained fixed on my face, as if trying to see right through me. You did it. This wasn't a question, but a statement. The main credit goes to your brother and the touching love story with his true love, I said, curling the corner of my mouth. I just gave it a little push. He didn't speak. The only sound in the hospital room was the soft noise of him drinking water. After a long while, he set the cup down. How long have I been asleep? 3 years and 4 months. I gave the precise number. He closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, they were filled with a cold, clear calmness. How is the company doing now? The East City land plot you were eyeing before the coma has been secured. The core data for the new energy project your brother was in charge of is with me, and it's currently stalled. A few of the old foxes on the board are getting restless, but they can still be kept in check for now, I reported succinctly, as if giving a work update. A flicker of surprise passed through his eyes. He clearly hadn't expected me to be so well informed about the situation. He began, but the door to the hospital room was suddenly flung open. Gu Tingfeng rushed in, his face flushed with excitement. Qi, you're really awake. What did the doctor say? It should have been a touching father-son reunion, but Gu Qi merely gave a faint nod. Dad, his gaze immediately returned to me, carrying an unmistakable, commanding intensity. I want to know everything that happened in the last 3 years, the details. Gu Tingfeng finally noticed me, his gaze complex, carrying a trace of barely perceptible wariness, and Xian has indeed been a great help during this time. Gu Qi responded, still looking at me. From now on, you report to me. A commanding tone. I raised an eyebrow. As expected, the eldest son of the Gu family, even after lying in bed for 3 years, was no easy man to deal with upon waking. All right, I met his gaze, but before the report, there's something that needs to be dealt with first. I took out my tablet, pulled up a surveillance video, and handed it to Gu Qi. On the screen, in the African branch office, Gu Qiyan was angrily hissing at someone on the other end of the video call. I don't care what it takes, you have to sabotage that project, don't let that woman Xing Anxian have her way, and find a way to get me back. Gu Qi watched the video, his expression darkening bit by bit. Gu Tingfeng leaned in to take a look and immediately flew into a rage. That bastard, he never learns his lesson. I calmly took back the tablet. Dad, with Gu Qiyan openly harming the group's interests and trying to disrupt normal domestic operations, how should he be dealt with according to the group's regulations? Gu Tingfeng's face turned ashen. Gu Qi lifted his eyes, their depths unfathomable. His voice carried the weakness of someone just waking up, yet each word was icy cold. Revoke all his positions in the overseas branch. Freeze all credit cards and dividend accounts under his name. Without my permission, he is not allowed to set foot outside the branch office. He looked at me, his gaze sharp as a blade. Madam, what do you think? I smiled slightly, knowing this was his first test of authority since waking up, and also a show of power. I think, I spoke slowly, meeting his intensely oppressive gaze, we could add one more. Send evidence of his attempts to sabotage the project to all members of the board of directors. A faint, almost imperceptible glimmer of something akin to approval flashed in Gu Qi's eyes. Approved, a single word, resounding and decisive. Gu Tingfeng opened his mouth, but in the end, said nothing. I knew it. Gu Qiyan was completely finished. On the very first day his own elder brother woke up, he was nailed to the pillar of shame. When the news reached Africa, Gu Qiyan smashed his office to pieces. Lin and she called from overseas, sobbing and wailing, her voice shrill. Xing Anxian, you poisonous woman, are you determined to drive us to our deaths? I simply held the phone away, waiting for her to finish howling before speaking coldly. Miss Lin, instead of barking here, why not think about how to use your pure and kind charm to convince your man to work hard on the construction site in Africa and support you? After all his cards are frozen now. From the other end of the line came Gu Qian's furious roar and the sound of things shattering. I hung up the phone, feeling quite pleased. Gu Qi's recovery speed was astonishingly fast. In less than half a month, he was already able to walk on his own, although his complexion remained pale. The commanding presence that came from long-standing authority had fully returned. He began taking over some of the core business matters I had been handling on his behalf, acting with swift decisiveness and a touch more ruthlessness than before his coma. The old foxes on the board who had been watching from the sidelines, even secretly passing information to Gu Qiyan, immediately sensed the shift in the wind. They quickly tucked their tails between their legs, and the frequency of their overtures to me noticeably increased. I was quite content to enjoy the peace and quiet, handing back most of my authority while firmly holding on to the new energy projects and the lifeline of Gu Qi's personal assets. This was stipulated in our prenuptial agreement and the very foundation of my security. That day, just after I had finished a video conference with Gu Qi and finalized the plan for the final cleanup of Gu Qian's remaining forces, the internal line rang. My secretary sounded a bit tense. President Sheng, the front desk downstairs says, Ms. Lin and she is insisting on seeing you. She says she won't leave until she does, and she's already drawn quite a few reporters. I raised an eyebrow. So Gu Qian's cards had been frozen, and now she couldn't sit still anymore. Let her come up. A few minutes later, Lin and she stormed into my office, looking haggard and completely devoid of the pitiful, delicate flower image she had maintained in the banquet hall. Her eyes were red and swollen as she pointed at me and shouted, Xing Anxian, haven't you done enough to harm Qi Yan? He's in Africa now, sick and without money to see a doctor. How can you be so vicious? I leaned back in my chair, slowly twirling a pen. He's sick, so why come to me? Go find his true love. Didn't you keep saying you love him and are willing to sacrifice everything for him? Now's your chance to prove it. Sell your blood or your kidney. It's up to you. She trembled with rage. If it weren't for you freezing his card, how could we not even have money for medical treatment? I finished her sentence with a cold laugh. Lin and she dropped the act. Gu Qian's base salary at the African branch is more than enough for him to live comfortably there. Whether he squandered it all himself or you spent it on luxury goods, you know the truth." Her face paled, her eyes darting nervously. I had no patience for further argument and pressed the intercom directly. "Security, please escort Miss Lin out. From now on, she is not allowed into the building without an appointment. Xing Anxian, how dare you, Lin!" And she screamed, trying to lunge forward, but was promptly restrained by security guards who had just arrived. "Watch me." I stood up, walked over to her, and looked down at her from above. "Also, let me remind you, if you ever dare to cause a scene at my company again, or spread any false information online, I won't hesitate to make public the colorful client list from your time working at Charm." Lin and she's scream cut off abruptly, the color draining from her face. For the first time, genuine fear flickered in her eyes as she looked at me. The security guards dragged her out, and the office fell back into silence. I sat back in the chair and rubbed my temples. My phone vibrated. A text from Gu Qi, brief and to the point. "All taken care of, yes. Come back to the Gu residence for dinner tonight. Father's wish." I stared at the screen, my fingers pausing for a moment, returning to the old mansion. Is Gu Tingfeng trying to ease tensions, or does he have other plans? In the evening, Gu Qi and I returned to the Gu family's old mansion together. The atmosphere was even more bizarre than I had imagined. Gu Tingfeng sat at the head of the table, his expression far from pleasant. Seated below him, dressed in glittering jewels and trying her best to assume the air of the lady of the house, was Gu Qian's biological mother, Lu Yuru, the woman who had climbed her way up through disgraceful means. When she saw Gu Qi and me enter, especially when she noticed Gu Qi moving as usual with his cold, imposing aura, the forced smile on her face instantly stiffened. "Qi has woken up, what a tremendous joy." Lu Yuru spoke dryly, yet her eyes seemed laced with venom. "Anxian is here too. Please have a seat." Gu Qi didn't even lift an eyelid. Directly pulling out a chair and sitting down, I followed suit, taking my seat with composure. At the dining table, Lu Yuru began to praise with hidden barbs. "Anxian is truly capable. In the years Qi was unconscious, she managed everything inside and outside the household so orderly, not like our Qi Yan, straightforward in nature, easily deceived by others, now drifting outside. Who knows how much hardship he has endured." As she spoke, she picked up a handkerchief to wipe away non-existent tears. Gu Tingfeng frowned and said nothing. I put down my chopsticks, looked at her, and smiled slightly. "Aunt Lu is right. Gu Qiyan is indeed easily deceived. However, it seems the one deceiving him isn't someone else, but his pure and kind, true love, Miss Lin, and she, who had close relationships with countless customers while selling drinks at the nightclub." Lu Yuru's face suddenly changed. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "Whether it's nonsense or not, Aunt Lu can go to Charm and ask around. Miss Lin was the star attraction there back in the day, with quite a few intimate patrons. You might even find a few old friends to catch up with." I spoke lightly, as if discussing the weather. "You," Lu Yuru's chest heaved with anger as she turned to Gu Tingfeng. "Husband, look at her, she's trying to drive us mother and son to our deaths." Gu Tingfeng's face darkened as he slammed his wine glass down heavily. "Enough, can't you even keep quiet while eating?" It was only then that Gu Qi spoke unhurriedly, his voice devoid of warmth. "Father Qian's actions in Africa have severely damaged the group's interests. The board of directors is very dissatisfied with him. If Aunt Lu continues to indulge and spoil him like this, I'm afraid he won't even be able to stay in the branch company." Lu Yuru instantly fell silent, staring at Gu Qi in terror. Gu Tingfeng took a deep breath, clearly struck where it hurt. "I know what I'm doing with this matter. Let's eat." The meal ended in a stifling atmosphere. As we left, Lu Yuru watched the backs of me and Gu Qi walking away side by side, her gaze so venomous it seemed almost capable of dripping blood. Once seated in the car, Gu Qi closed his eyes to rest, then suddenly spoke. "Your methods for dealing with Lu Yuru are too gentle." I turned my head to look at him. He opened his eyes, a cold emptiness in their depths. "To kill a snake, strike its head. What she cares about most isn't Gu Qiyan. It's her status as Mrs. Gu and the wealth and glory that come with it." I understood what he meant. I just hadn't expected him to be so merciless toward his own stepmother. "Understood." I nodded. It seemed it was time to find some real trouble for Lu Yuru. Gu Qi closed his eyes again, the corner of his mouth lifting ever so slightly. "If you need help, just say the word." A few days later, I met with a private investigator and slid a stack of documents about Lu Yuru across the table to him. focus on her financial transactions over the past 3 years, especially overseas accounts, as well as her private interactions with those so-called card-playing friends of hers. The detective understood immediately and quickly left. Gu Qi was right. A woman like Lu Yuru, who rose to her position through schemes, fears nothing more than losing money and status. With Gu Qiyan incapacitated, she would definitely fight to secure a way out for herself. There was no way she was clean. Sure enough, in less than a week, the detective sent over preliminary findings. Not only had Lu Yuru secretly accepted kickbacks by leveraging her status as Mrs. Gu, but she had also transferred a large amount of assets overseas through underground banks. Even more explosive was the discovery that one of her mahjong buddies was a pretty boy with a prior fraud conviction. I held on to this evidence and didn't rush to act. I was waiting for the right moment. On this day, the Gu Corporation held its quarterly board meeting. Gu Qi, as the heir who had just awakened and swiftly taken control of the situation, presided over the proceedings. I attended in my capacity as the holder of Gu Qi's proxy voting rights and the person in charge of the new energy project. Halfway through the meeting, during the discussion of an overseas investment proposal, a director who had always been close to Lu Yuru suddenly launched an attack. Qi, you've only just awakened, so you might not fully understand the complexity of this project. I think it would be more prudent to entrust this project to someone with more experience to lead. For example, we could ask Madame Lu to assist from the sidelines. She also has some overseas. Gu Qi didn't even lift his eyelids, merely tapping his fingertips lightly on the table. I immediately caught on and directly cut off that director. Directorly, by experience, are you referring to the experience of Mrs. Lu secretly manipulating through your nephew's company last year to pocket 50 million in kickbacks? The entire conference room instantly fell silent. Director Li's face turned pale. Sheng Anxian, you're slandering me. Unhurriedly, I pulled out several bank transfer records and contract copies from my folder and had my assistant distribute them to the directors. This is the fund flow record of Ms. Lu Yuru receiving kickbacks, and the person handling it is your own nephew. Chairman Li, would you like me to submit more detailed evidence, including the account books of your nephew's company, to the Board of Supervisors? Chairman Li broke out in a cold sweat, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. The other directors looked at the ironclad evidence in their hands. Their expressions varied, and their gazes toward me were filled with shock and fear. Only then did Gu Qi slowly speak, his voice devoid of any emotion. Director Li is getting on in years, and it seems his energy is waning, making him easily deceived. Effective immediately, he is relieved of all positions within the group and will retire to enjoy his remaining years at home. With a light touch, he dismissed a senior member. His gaze swept across the room. Anyone else have doubts about the project lead, or about my wife's capabilities? The meeting room fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. No one dared utter another word. I knew Gu Qi was using my hand to establish his authority, while also declaring to everyone, Sheng Anxian was under his protection. After the meeting, I returned to my office, and Gu Qi followed me in. Quick on the move, he remarked. You gave good advice, I said, pouring him a glass of water. He took it but didn't drink, looking at me instead. When do you plan to reel in Lu Yuru? Soon, I smiled. Once she transfers a bit more assets, the amount will be large enough to warrant a heavier sentence. He nodded, seemingly quite satisfied with my ruthlessness. Just then, an urgent news alert popped up on my computer. Madame Lu Yuru of the Gu Group suspected of massive embezzlement and illegal asset transfers, taken away by police for investigation. The accompanying photo showed Lu Yuru being escorted by 2 female police officers, her face pale and her hair disheveled, bearing no resemblance to the dignified lady she once was. I raised an eyebrow and looked at Gu Qi. Did you do this? He took a leisurely sip of water. Just a little something on the side. I understood. He thought I was moving too slowly, so he added fuel to the fire, and in the most official, most irreversible way possible, ruthless, and utterly decisive. This way, Lu Yuru was completely finished, and Gu Qiyan lost his last bit of support overseas. My phone vibrated frantically. It was Gu Qiyan calling from Africa, his voice hoarse and desperate. Sheng Anxian, it was you. You must have harmed my mother, you venomous snake. I won't let you go. I'll haunt you even as a ghost. I hung up directly and blocked him. Finally, peace and quiet. Gu Qi set down his water glass and walked to the window, gazing at the bustling traffic below. Most of the eyesores have been cleared away. He turned around, his silhouette sharp and cold against the backlight. Now, it's time to focus on what really matters. what really mattered, to him, was gaining complete control over the Gu family's empire, and, dealing with those enemies still lurking in the shadows. I know that this marriage of ours, which began with interests and revenge, is gradually evolving into an unbreakable alliance in a peculiar way. I walked to his side and stood shoulder to shoulder with him. What do you want to do next? He turned his head to look at me, a faint, almost imperceptible smile flickering in his eyes. What do you think, my lady? The news of Lu Yuru's arrest was like a massive rock crashing into the already turbulent depths of the Gu family's pond. Gu Tingfeng was so furious he nearly had a heart attack and was admitted to the hospital's special care unit. No matter how much he disliked Lu Yuru, she had held the title of Mrs. Gu for nearly 2 decades. Now, with such a scandal exposed, the Gu family's reputation was in tatters. I brought a fruit basket to visit him and overheard him venting to his confidant outside the ward, "Investigate, get to the bottom of this. Who leaked the information to the police? Was it that girl, Sheng Anxian?" The confidant stammered nervously. I pushed the door open and entered, wearing just the right amount of concern on my face. "Dad, are you feeling any better?" Gu Tingfeng saw me, his face turning ashen as he struggled to suppress his anger. "And Xian is here." He dismissed his trusted aide, leaving only the 2 of us in the hospital room. I was also surprised by Aunt Lu's situation, I said calmly, setting down the fruit basket. "However, the evidence of her embezzling company funds and illegally transferring assets is solid. This is a major blow to the group's reputation. The top priority now is to cut ties as soon as possible and stabilize the stock price." Gu Tingfeng stared at me, his gaze sharp, trying to find any flaw in my expression. "Don't you have anything to say?" I met his gaze and said frankly, "Yes, I believe we should immediately issue a statement to clarify the group's stance on Lu Yuru's personal actions, and have either you or Qi personally apologize and compensate the affected partners to minimize the losses as much as possible." Every word I spoke was reasonable and entirely from the perspective of the group's interests, leaving him no room to find fault. Gu Tingfeng fell silent for a long moment before finally waving his hand wearily. "Do as you say, let Qi handle it." "All right, Dad, get some rest." I turned and left. The moment I closed the door, a cold smile curled at the corner of my lips. Cutting ties, apologizing, this was only the beginning. Gu Qi acted faster than I had imagined. With swift decisiveness, he issued a severance announcement, personally met with the heads of several major partners, and handled the situation with a firm yet tactful approach, quickly stabilizing the situation. Those on the board who had initially voiced minor criticisms fell completely silent in the face of the powerful control he demonstrated. The Gu family's great ship, after a brief period of turbulence, steadily sailed into the course steered by Gu Qi. As for Gu Qiyan, after Lu Yuru's downfall, he completely vanished without a trace. It is said he couldn't even stay at the African branch, having accumulated a mountain of debt, and disappeared with Lin and Shi as if evaporated from the face of the earth. I didn't bother searching. Stray dogs aren't worth wasting energy on, they'll always jump out sooner or later. That day, representing the Gu Corporation at a technology summit, I had just signed a letter of intent for a collaboration and stepped out of the meeting room when, at a corner of the hallway, a familiar yet disheveled figure blocked my path. It was Lin and She had grown alarmingly thin, dressed in a cheap, crumpled dress, her face flushed with an unnatural redness. Yet her eyes burned with an unnerving intensity as they fixed on me. Sheng Anxian, her voice was hoarse, carrying a desperate, all-or-nothing madness. "Give me money, give me 5 million, otherwise, I'll expose everything." How you and Gu Qi conspired to harm Aunt Lu and force Qian away. I have evidence in my hands. I stopped in my tracks, looking at her desperate state, and couldn't help but find it laughable. Evidence? I raised an eyebrow. Are you referring to those fabricated chat logs and transfer screenshots your con artist lover gave you? Lin and She's pupils contracted sharply, the color draining from her face. How do you know? I know more than just that. I took a step closer, lowering my voice so only the 2 of us could hear. I also know that the Mr. Wang you once served at Charm nightclub has recently gotten into legal trouble and is in desperate need of someone to take the fall. Tell me, if I were to send you over and inform him that you're willing to shoulder all the blame, do you think he'd be grateful to me? Lin and She's body began to tremble violently, her eyes shifting from madness to utter terror. "No, you can't." "I can." I straightened up, brushing off non-existent dust from my clothes. "Lin and She, get lost. If you show up in front of me again, what awaits you next time won't be just a few words. It'll be 3 free meals a day in prison." She seemed to have all her strength drained away, collapsing to the ground. utterly broken. I didn't spare her another glance, walking away directly. Such an aunt doesn't even deserve to have me lift a finger. Back at the company, Gucci was waiting for me in my office. He was sitting in my chair, flipping through the latest progress report on the new energy project. Ran into some trouble, he asked without looking up. Just a fly. Swatted it away. I walked over and picked up another document. He closed the report and looked up at me, his gaze deep and penetrating. There's news about Gucci Yen. I paused in my movements. Where? Macau. He owes a huge debt to the casino and has been detained. Gucci's tone was flat, as if discussing a trivial matter. The casino contacted the Gu family, demanding money to redeem him. I sneered. What does Dad think? Father's opinion. Gucci stood up, walked over to me, and looked down at me with a deep gaze. Is that the Gu family does not raise useless people, let alone clean up after gamblers. I understand. Gu Tingfeng has completely given up on Gucci Yen, so, I met his gaze. So, Gucci's lips curved into a cold, cruel arc. I'll have to trouble you, madam, to make a trip to Macau and clean it up. He emphasized the words, clean it up, with particular weight. I looked into his eyes, seeing the undisguised coldness and resolve, and understood completely. He intended to use my hand to deliver the final blow to Gucci Yen, and to sever all potential troubles for the Gu family once and for all. All right, I replied without hesitation. I'll go. That very afternoon, I flew to Macau with my lawyer and bodyguards. The casino staff led us to a dimly lit private room. Gucci Yen was tied to a chair, bruised and battered, reeking of filth. There was not a trace left of the arrogant demeanor he once had as the second young master of the Gu family. He saw me, froze for a moment, then as if spotting a lifeline, struggled and shouted hoarsely, Sheng Anxian, it's you, quick, give them the money, take me back. I walked up to him, stopped, and watched him quietly. Go back, I repeated, my tone light and airy. Back where? The Gu family. Gucci Yen nodded urgently. Yes, back to the Gu family. I'm the second young master of the Gu family. They can't just abandon me. I smiled, bent down, leaned close to him, and whispered in a voice only the two of us could hear. Gucci Yen, don't you get it yet? The Gu family has long since abandoned you. Your mother is in prison, your father acts as if you're dead, and your brother. I paused, watching his face instantly turn ashen, and spoke each word clearly. He sent me here to see you off on your final journey. Gu Qian's pupils contracted sharply as he shook his head frantically. No, impossible, you're lying. Dad wouldn't just abandon me, and my brother wouldn't either. Gambling debt, 80 million. I straightened up, took out a document, and threw it in front of him. Sign this. Renounce all inheritance rights to the Gu family, and the debt will be cleared. The casino will let you go. It was a gratuitous equity transfer agreement and a declaration of renunciation of inheritance rights. Gucci Yen looked at those few sheets of paper as if he had seen a venomous snake, shrinking back abruptly. I won't sign, don't even think about it, won't sign. I raised an eyebrow and gave a meaningful glance to the casino manager beside me. The supervisor waved his hand, and two burly men stepped forward, restraining Gucci Yen, grabbing his finger, and pressing it toward the ink pad. No, let me go, Sheng Anxian. You venomous woman, how dare you? Ah, Gucci Yen struggled desperately, roaring and cursing. I watched coldly, unmoved. In the end, accompanied by a desperate wail, his thumb was forcibly pressed onto the end of the agreement. The agreement is in effect. I picked up the signed document, reviewed it once more, and confirmed everything was in order. All right, he's all yours, I said to the casino manager. The Gu family has no further ties with this person. The manager understood and signaled for someone to drag away Gucci Yen, who was slumped and hollow-eyed. What awaited him was the endless abyss of debt collection by the casino. I turned and walked away from this place reeking of decay. Stepping out of the casino, the neon lights of Macau's night were especially glaring. My phone buzzed. A text from Gucci. Just one word. All set. I replied with a single word. Done. From this moment on, the name Gucci Yen was completely erased from the Gu family registry. Returning to Haicheng, the Gu Corporation had already undergone a complete transformation. Gucci had completed the power transition with an iron fist, and there were no more dissenting voices within the board of directors. Under my leadership, the new energy project progressed at an astonishing pace, with the first product about to launch, and market expectations were at an all-time high. Gucci and I, a couple bound by revenge and interests, have become the most formidable duo in the business world. He handles external affairs, maneuvering with ease. I manage internal matters, controlling core technologies and financial lifelines. our synergy feels less like that of newlyweds and more like partners who have fought side by side for years. The outside world is abuzz with gossip, claiming we are a couple in name only, each taking what we need. We can't be bothered to explain. On this day, Gu Qi surprisingly returned home on time, bringing a bottle of red wine. Let's celebrate. He took off his suit jacket and loosened his tie. The obstacles are cleared, the project is settled. I raised an eyebrow and took the glass. To celebrate our successful cooperation, he clinked his glass against mine, a glimmer of light in his eyes. To celebrate, Mrs. Gu's position being secure, I chuckled softly and downed the drink in one go. The wine was rich, carrying a fruity aroma. Lin and she has been found, he suddenly said. I swirled my wine glass. Not particularly concerned. Is she still alive? In some small Southeast Asian country, she caught a disease, has no money for treatment, and is on her last legs. Gu Qi said in a flat tone. She sent word, wanting to see you one last time, saying she has a secret about your parents to tell you. My parents, my hand holding the wine glass paused slightly. My parents had passed away unexpectedly during an academic expedition in their early years. A past event the Xing family had always been reluctant to mention. How did Lin and she know about it? Do you think it's a trap? I asked. 99%. Gu Qi looked at me. Are you going or not? I remained silent for a moment, then finished the remaining wine in my glass. Go, even if there's only a 1% chance. I have to find out. What's more, I want to see with my own eyes what this once delicate white lotus has withered into. Gu Qi didn't stop me. I'll arrange for someone to go with you. 3 days later, accompanied by bodyguards, I arrived in a damp, dilapidated border town in Southeast Asia. In a small clinic reeking of mold and disinfectant, I met Lin and she lay on a grimy hospital bed, emaciated and gaunt, her face sallow, her eyes sunken deep into their sockets. Her once proud long hair was now dry and yellowed like straw. Seeing me, a final glimmer of light sparked in her clouded eyes as she struggled to sit up. You came. Her voice was hoarse, like a broken bellows. I stood by the bed, keeping my distance, my expression blank. Speak, my parents' secret. Lin and she coughed violently, gasping for breath, a strange and venomous smile spreading across her face. Xing, do you think you've won? Do you know, your parents back then didn't die by accident? My heart sank heavily, my nails digging into my palms. Explain clearly. It was Gu. Her words came in broken gasps, her breath faint. It was Gu Tingfeng. He was afraid your father's research results would threaten the Gu family, so. Before she could finish, another wave of heart-wrenching coughs seized her, and she suddenly spat out a mouthful of black blood, splattering it onto the filthy bedsheet. I stared at her intently. Where's the proof? Lin and she's eyes began to glaze over, a vengeful delight spreading across her face. The proof? It's long gone. Xing, you're just a pitiful worm, helping your enemy build an empire. Her voice grew fainter and fainter until, with a final tilt of her head, her breath ceased entirely. Her eyes remained wide open, frozen with endless resentment and a hint of mockery. I stood in place, the clinic's foul odor filling my nostrils, while Lin He's dying words slithered into my ears like a venomous snake. Gu Tingfeng killed my parents. Is that possible? Killing for commercial gain. The massive impact churned my stomach. I forced myself to calm down. Lin Shi's words couldn't be fully trusted. In her final moments, she only wanted to drag me down with her, to unsettle my mind. But what if it was true? I took a deep breath, turned, and ordered the bodyguard, take care of it. Then, without looking back, I left that nauseating place. On the return flight, I gazed at the churning sea of clouds outside the window, my heart in turmoil. If what Lin and she said was true, then all the revenge I had pursued since my rebirth would be nothing but a farce. Had I been helping the Gu family, who might be my father's murderers, to fight against the son of another enemy? Did Gu Qi know about this? What role did he play in all of this? The plane landed, and Gu Qi personally came to pick me up. He stood by the car in a black overcoat, tall and imposing, with a powerful presence. Seeing me, he walked over and naturally took the bag from my hand. You look pale. He frowned. What did she say? I looked up at his stern face, which now held a trace of concern, and for the first time, it felt so unfamiliar. I opened my mouth, wanting to ask, but swallowed the words back down. It wasn't the right time yet. Without evidence, acting rashly would only alert the enemy and leave me at a disadvantage. It's nothing. I lowered my eyes, hiding the turbulent emotions swirling within. I just felt a bit sick seeing her like that. Gu Qi looked at me for a few seconds, didn't press further, and pulled open the car door. Let's go home. Sitting in the car, I watched the street speeding past outside the window, my heart cold as ice. Back at the villa, I moved into the independent study on the top floor, using the need for high confidentiality during the project's final stage as an excuse. Eating and sleeping there, Gu Qi didn't say much, only instructing the servants to deliver meals on time. He seemed very busy, often not returning until late at night. Between us, it felt as if an invisible wall had been erected. I began investigating discreetly. My parents were top-tier materials scientists. Back then, a national-level research project they led entered a critical phase that directly competed with the Gu family's core business. Not long after, they met with an accident and fell off a cliff during a field expedition. The official conclusion was equipment failure. Using the Xing family's connections and the access privileges Gu Qi had given me, I quietly retrieved the accident report from that year, along with the Gu family's confidential archives from that period. The report was flawlessly written, however. In the Gu family archives, a copy of a board meeting minutes marked as destroyed caught my attention. It vaguely mentioned the need to properly handle the potential threat brought by the Xing family project, with the date of the document being just 1 week before my parents' accident. Properly handle. My heart sank bit by bit. This wasn't enough to serve as evidence, but the implications were far too obvious. I need something more concrete. I remembered an old safe left by my parents, which had always been kept at the Xing family's old house. I couldn't open it as a child, and later I forgot about it. Maybe there are clues inside. I found an excuse to return to the Xing family home, sent everyone away, and tried countless times using the passwords I knew and my mother's birthday combination. Finally, with a click, the safe opened. Inside, aside from some old photos and jewelry, there was only a thick, leather-bound notebook. It is my father's lab journal. With trembling hands, I opened it. The first pages were filled with complex formulas and data, until the last few entries. March 15th, Gu Tingfeng visited today. His attitude was forceful. He demanded that we halt the project or share the core data. What a pipe dream. This project concerns the nation's economy and the people's livelihood. How could it be reduced to a tool for capitalists to profit from? March 18th, signs of deliberate damage were found again during equipment inspection. Reporting to the police yielded no results. Is it the Gu family? Are they truly so lawless? March 22nd, someone is following us. Yueru, my mother, is very frightened. I have backed up the crucial data and hidden it at. The diary ends abruptly here. Where is it hidden? The following pages have been torn out. I collapsed onto the floor, my entire body cold and numb. Although there is no direct evidence, the contents of my father's diary and the words spoken by Lin and Shi before his death corroborate each other. Gu Tingfeng, it's really him. For the sake of profit, he actually resorted to such a vicious move. An overwhelming surge of hatred instantly engulfed me, 1,000 times more intense than when I learned of Gu Qiyan and Lin and Shi's betrayal. I carefully tucked away the diary, erased all traces, and left the Xing family. Back at the villa, I locked myself in the study, overwhelmed by immense grief and hatred that nearly tore me apart. I had been reborn with a single-minded focus on revenge against Gu Qiyan and Lin and Shi, never imagining that the true enemy had been standing high above all along, and I had even called him Dad. In the evening, Gu Qi knocked on the door. Come out for dinner. I took a deep breath, suppressed all my emotions, and opened the door. He stood at the doorway, frowning slightly. You haven't been yourself lately. The project is stressful. I avoided his gaze and walked toward the dining room. The dining table was quiet. He suddenly spoke up. Before you went to Macau, you asked me if I knew what Lin and Shi wanted to say. My hand holding the chopsticks paused, and I looked up at him. His gaze was calm, carrying a hint of scrutiny. What exactly did she say? My heart pounded wildly in my chest. Was he testing me, or did he truly not know? I set down my chopsticks, looked straight into his eyes, and spoke word by word. She said my parents' deaths were not an accident. Gu Qi's pupils contracted almost imperceptibly, though he quickly regained his composure. That fleeting anomaly did not escape my notice. He knows. He must know something. You believe the ramblings of a dying man. His tone remained steady, but the knuckles gripping the water glass had turned slightly white. Is that so? I forced a cold smile, but I looked into the Gu family's records from back then and saw that board meeting memo about properly handling the potential threats from the Xing family project. The timing, it was right before my parents' accident. Gu Qi's expression finally changed. He set down the water glass. producing a crisp clinking sound. The study was as silent as death. We faced off. Across the dining table, the air seeming to freeze into ice. After a long while, he slowly stood up, his tall figure bringing an intense sense of oppression. Xing Anxian, his voice was low, carrying a warning. Knowing too much about some things won't do you any good. I looked up at him, not backing down in the slightest. So, it's true, Gu Tingfeng killed my parents, and you knew about it, maybe even, were involved. The last few words came out with great difficulty. Gu Qi's eyes were as deep as the sea, swirling with complex emotions I couldn't comprehend. He neither admitted nor denied it. The Gu family's ship is already in our hands. He walked around the dining table, came to stand before me, leaned down with his hands braced on the back of my chair, trapping me between him and the table, his presence overwhelming. Let the past be the past, what matters now is the present and the future. He was so close that I could clearly see the undercurrents in his eyes and sense the threat in his words, along with a hint of admonition that was hard to detect. Let it be the past. I repeated those 4 words, feeling nothing but profound irony. How could a blood feud ever be left in the past? I looked at his face so close to mine, the face that had once offered me a sliver of comradely comfort on my path of revenge, now only held cold calculation and concealment. I pushed him away abruptly and stood up. Gu Qi, don't lump me together with you. I stared at him, each word clear and sharp, carrying a resolute chill. I don't want your ship. From today onward, our cooperation is terminated. After completely breaking with Gu Qi, I moved out of the Gu family villa and into a discreet apartment under the Xing family's name. The new energy project was nearing its final stages. This was my most important bargaining chip. Using the need for absolute quiet to make the final breakthrough as my reason, I cut off all outside contact, including Gu Qi. I know he's looking for me, calls, texts, even sending people to wait outside the Xing family's old mansion and my company building, but I avoid him at every turn. I need time, I need to sort out my thoughts, and more than anything, I need to find evidence that can strike a fatal blow. Just as I was at my wit's end, an unexpected person reached out to me. She was Gu Qi's former personal assistant, Su Man, a woman of exceptional ability and delicate beauty, who had, voluntarily, resigned not long after Gu Qi fell into a coma. I had vaguely sensed something subtle between her and Gu Qi, but at the time, I didn't look into it further. She arranged to meet me at an extremely discreet cafe. Miss Sheng, or, should I call you Mrs. Gu? Su Man stirred her coffee, her smile gentle, yet with a hint of sharpness in her eyes that was hard to detect. Get straight to the point. I wasn't in the mood for pleasantries with her. She set down her spoon and looked at me. I know you're investigating your parents' affairs, about Gu Tingfeng, about Gu Qi. My heart tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. What do you know? What I know might be more than you think. Su Man leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. The first thing Gu Qi did after waking up wasn't to consolidate his power, but to secretly investigate his father, especially the accident 3 years ago that led to your parents' deaths. I gripped my coffee cup tightly. He's investigating it too. He's been investigating all along, Su Man said with certainty. He suspects his father's hands aren't clean, and it might even be connected to the earlier illness and death of his biological mother. Gu Qi's biological mother died of illness when he was 10 years old. Not long after, Lu Yuru brought Gu Qiyan into the household. Could it be? An even more terrifying speculation surfaced in my mind. Why did he tell you all this? I stared at Su Man. Su Man lowered her eyelashes, revealing a bitter smile. Because, in a way, he and I are the same kind of people. My father was once Gu Dingfeng's right-hand man and one of the few who knew about your parents' project. He died of a sudden heart attack 1 month before your parents' accident. I gasped sharply. Gu Qi found me, and we reached an agreement. He needed me to help him gather evidence of Gu Dingfeng's past crimes, and I needed to use his influence to seek justice for my father. Su Man raised her eyes, her gaze resolute. During the 3 years he was in a coma, I never stopped investigating. I have some things in my possession. What things? Some phone recordings and transfer records that can prove Gu Tingfeng instructed people to sabotage your parents' exploration equipment and falsify the accident scene. Though not entirely direct, they are sufficient to draw serious attention from the police and initiate a reinvestigation. Su Man took a miniature USB drive from her bag and pushed it toward me. Also, the reason Lu Yuru managed to rise to power back then was because she administered a slow-acting poison to Gu Qi's mother. The evidence is in there as well. I took that cold USB drive, feeling as though it weighed 1,000 pounds. So, Gu Qi approached me, protected me, and even tacitly allowed me to deal with Lu Yuru and Gu Qiyan, not just because of my abilities and the backing of the Xing family, but also because we share a common enemy. Were his previous concealment and warnings meant to avoid alerting the enemy, or were they a test for me? Why didn't he tell me himself? I asked. He said you're too clever and too impulsive. He needed to be sure you were a reliable ally, not a revenge-driven avenger blinded by hatred who might ruin the entire plan. Su Man looked at me. Now, he's leaving the choice to you. Will you trust him, join forces to bring down Gu Tingfeng, and obtain solid evidence to clear your parents' names, or will you continue going it alone, risking everything falling apart? I fell silent. There was too much information to process. I needed time to digest it all. If what Su Man said is true, then Gu Qi's mind is terrifyingly deep. How much of his feelings for me are genuine, how much are false? I need to think about it. I put away the USB drive. Of course. Su Man stood up. However, Miss Sheng, time is running out. Gu Tingfeng seems to have already noticed something, and he's been making frequent moves lately, and, she paused, her words carrying a hidden meaning. Gu Qi's side doesn't only have me as a collaborator, some people may not necessarily want you two to join forces. After saying this, she gave me a meaningful look, then turned and left. I sat in place, watching the bustling traffic outside the window, my mind in turmoil. Gu Qi, Su Man, Gu Tingfeng, everyone seemed to wear a mask, every word potentially hiding a trap. Was the content on that USB drive real? Or was it just another bait to lure me into a trap? I took out my phone and looked at the unread message Gu Qi had sent earlier. Come back, let's talk. My fingertip hovered over the screen, lingering for a long time without pressing down. Should I trust him and take a gamble, or, better to kill by mistake than to let go? Hatred burned in my heart, but reason told me that Su Man's words were most likely true. Gu Qi's motive for dealing with Gu Tingfeng was strong enough. In the end, I took a deep breath and made a decision. I replied to Gu Qi's text message, tonight at 8, at the apartment, at 8. In the evening, Gu Qi appeared punctually at the door of my apartment. He was dressed in a simple black shirt, his figure tall and straight. A trace of weariness, barely noticeable, lingered on his face, yet his eyes remained sharp, as if they could pierce through one's soul. Willing to see me now, he stepped inside, closing the door behind him with a backward motion, his tone betraying neither joy nor anger. I didn't turn on the main lights, only the floor lamp beside the sofa, its dim yellow light cutting the living room into distinct areas of light and shadow. Su Man came to see me. I got straight to the point, placing the USB drive on the coffee table. She said you're investigating Gu Tingfeng, looking into my parents' deaths, and your mother's illness and passing. Gu Qi's gaze fell on the USB drive, his expression unchanged, as if he had already anticipated it. What else did she say? She said you and I share a common enemy. I stared into his eyes, not missing the slightest flicker of emotion. She also said that around you, she's not the only collaborator. Gu Qi walked over to the opposite side of the sofa but didn't sit down. He just looked down at me from his height, the light and shadow carving deep contours across his face. What she said is mostly true. He admitted it, with a bluntness that caught me off guard. Mostly, I latched onto that word. I am indeed investigating Gu Tingfeng, and I do need allies. He paused, his gaze deepening as he looked at me. But Su Man, she has concealed part of the truth. What truth? About her own motives. Gu Qi's voice grew colder. Her father did die because of that project, but he wasn't entirely innocent. He took Gu Tingfeng's money and participated in sabotaging your parents' project in its early stages. It was only later that Gu Tingfeng silenced him along with the others. My heart shuddered. Su Man knows this. Her approach to me is less about cooperation and more about using my hand to avenge her father. At the same time, she wants to get the evidence of her father's bribery from Gu Tingfeng to completely clear his name. A cold, mocking smile curled at the corner of Gu Qi's lips. She didn't tell you, did she, that her father was the one initially bribed by Gu Tingfeng to tamper with your parents' equipment? A chill shot up my spine. Su Man, she actually harbored such deep schemes. And what about you? I suppressed the tempest raging in my heart and fixed my gaze on him. How much have you hidden from me? Who is this so-called, more than one collaborator of yours? Gu Qi fell silent for a moment, as if weighing his words. At that moment, his phone rang at the most inopportune time. He glanced at the caller ID, his brow furrowing almost imperceptibly, and hung up directly. But then, my phone also rang. It was an unfamiliar number. A sense of foreboding seized me. I pressed the answer button, and a deliberately hushed, tearful young man's voice came through. Is this Miss Xing'anxian? Please, save my mother. I'm Gu Qi's son. My mother is by way. Gu Tingfeng. Gu Tingfeng is trying to silence us. Gu Qi's son. I abruptly looked up at Gu Qi. He had clearly heard the content of the call as well, his face instantly turning extremely pale, a flicker of something I had never seen before flashing in his eyes. Panic. Where are you? I steadied my mind and asked the person on the other end of the line. We're at the abandoned chemical plant in the western suburbs. They're about to find us. Please. The call was abruptly cut off, leaving only the dial tone. The living room was deathly silent. I put down my phone, looked at Gu Qi, and asked word by word, Gu Qi, you'd better explain this clearly. Who is by way, and what's the deal with this son? Gu Qi closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, his gaze was filled with a cold, resolute determination. By way was my college sweetheart, he said in a low voice, with a barely noticeable hint of hoarseness. After we broke up, she found out she was pregnant and gave birth to the child. She's been hiding from the Gu family all this time, raising the child alone. Does Gu Tingfeng not know about their existence? I pressed further. He didn't know before. Gu Qi's eyes turned dark and fierce, but recently, he might have found out. He's afraid that the existence of this illegitimate child will affect my value, and his marriage alliance with the Xing family. So, he wants to silence them for good. I looked at him and suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of irony. So that's how it is. No wonder he kept me at arm's length before. No wonder he tacitly allowed all my actions. No wonder Su Man said there was more than one collaborator by his side. He protected me, partly because we shared the goal of dealing with Gu Tingfeng, but more likely, he wanted to use the influence of the Xing family and my identity as Mrs. Gu to restrain Gu Tingfeng, buying time and space for the woman and child he truly cared about. And I, Xing'anxian, the so-called scientific genius, the so-called queen of revenge, from beginning to end, was nothing more than a useful pawn on his chessboard, perhaps even a shield. A massive sense of humiliation and betrayal nearly overwhelmed me, suffocating me even more than when I learned the truth about my parents' deaths. I looked at him and suddenly let out a low, bitter laugh. The sound filled with desolation and self-mockery. Gu Qi, you really have it all figured out. I stood up, walked over to him, and looked up at his cold, handsome face, using me to draw Gu Tingfeng's fire, clearing the way for you and your beloved illegitimate son. Once Gu Tingfeng is taken down, you'll just kick me aside and reunite with your old flame and your family. I raised my hand and jabbed hard at his chest, my fingertips icy cold. What do you take me for? Gu Qi grabbed my wrist, his grip firm, his gaze complicated. Xing'anxian, it's not what you think. Then what is it? I abruptly shook off his hand, took a step back, my eyes completely chilled, as if frosted over. Gu Qi, I'm telling you, our cooperation ends here. I will deal with Gu Tingfeng personally. As for you, I looked at him, word by word, with bone-chilling coldness, and that illegitimate son of yours who can't see the light of day, you'd better pray you don't fall into my hands. With that, I turned around, grabbed the car keys and that USB drive, and rushed out of the apartment. Without looking back, the night wind was biting, cutting across my face like a knife. I got into the car, started the engine, and floored the accelerator. The vehicle shot into the night like an arrow released from a bow. Destination, the abandoned chemical plant in the western suburbs. I wasn't going to save his white moonlight or his illegitimate child. I was going to see for myself just what kind of person Gu Qi had gone to such lengths to protect. More importantly, I need to get the evidence of Gu Tingfeng's murder to silence witnesses. West suburb, abandoned chemical plant. The rusted steel framework looked like the skeleton of a giant beast under the pale moonlight. The night wind whistled eerily through the broken window frames. I parked the car in the shadows far away and slipped in silently. The air was thick with the pungent smell of rust and chemical reagents. A stifled sob and a rough shout came from deep within the factory building. Bitch, you sure know how to hide. Hand over that little bastard, please, spare the child. He has nothing to do with the Gu family, came a woman's trembling plea. Following the sounds, I hid behind a pile of discarded machinery and saw the scene inside clearly. A woman dressed plainly, her face pale yet still bearing traces of her former delicate beauty, tightly shielded a boy of about 7 or 8 years old. The boy was so frightened that his face had turned ashen, and he clung desperately to the hem of his mother's clothes. Facing them were 3 men dressed in black suits, their expressions fierce and menacing, each holding a club in hand. They were Gu Tingfeng's men, no relation. Gu Qi's offspring is the original sin. The leader sneered viciously. The boss said, "Clean them up, leave no one alive." He raised the stick, about to strike the woman. Now, I rushed out from the shadows, pressing the record button on my phone, and shouted, "Stop, I've already called the police." The men were startled by my sudden appearance and froze in their tracks. Taking advantage of their stunned moment, I grabbed the woman named Bai Wei and the child, growling, "Run!" Bai Wei reacted swiftly, picking up the child and following me as we rushed out. "Damn it, there's a woman too!" After them, behind us came the furious roar and the sound of pursuing footsteps. The chemical plant had a complex layout. We desperately ran, using abandoned equipment and shadows for cover. Bullets whizzed past our ears, striking iron frames and sending sparks flying. I pulled Bai Wei into hiding behind a large reaction tank, temporarily cutting off the pursuer's line of sight. Bai Wei was panting heavily, the child in her arms whimpering softly. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with terror and a flicker of gratitude. You're Miss Sheng, Qi." Shut up. I coldly cut her off, having no interest in hearing her mention Gu Qi's name. I quickly checked my phone, confirming that the earlier conversation and threats had been clearly recorded. This is the ironclad evidence that Gu Tingfeng hired a killer. Just then, the sound of urgent braking and even more chaotic fighting, mixed with screams, came from outside. "Gu Qi is here, he moves fast." I signaled for Bai Wei and the child to hide, then quietly peeked out to look. I saw Gu Qi, along with a few others, already engaged in a fierce struggle with the three assassins. His movements were ruthless, each strike aimed to kill, completely unlike someone who had just woken from a coma. Clearly, he hadn't been idle these past 3 years. Soon, the three assassins were subdued and tied up on the ground. Gu Qi quickly walked toward our hiding spot, his face showing obvious anxiety. "Bai Wei, Xiaozhe." He first looked at the mother and son, confirming they were safe and sound before turning his gaze to me, his expression complicated. "And Xian, you?" I stepped out from behind the reaction tank, holding up my phone, staring at him expressionlessly. "Gu Qi, no need to act anymore. Gu Tingfeng hired a killer. And the evidence is solid. You protect your woman and child, I'll settle my own score. We're even." He furrowed his brows. "It's not what you think. Bai Wei and I have long since." "I don't care." I cut him off sharply, backed up the recording to the cloud, then tucked my phone back into my pocket. "Take your people and get out of here, now." I turned to leave this disgusting place. "Xing Anxian," Gu Qi called out to me from behind, his voice carrying a suppressed anger. "Do you have to be like this?" I stopped in my tracks but did not turn around. "Gu Qi, from the moment you decided to use me, we could only be enemies." With that, I strode away without looking back. Back at the apartment, I immediately contacted my most trusted lawyer and key members of the Xing family, submitting the recorded evidence along with other incriminating evidence against Gu Tingfeng from the USB drive. Prosecute Gu Tingfeng for intentional homicide, commercial fraud, illegal asset transfers, pursue every single charge to the fullest extent. The lawyer looked at the thick stack of documents, his expression grave. "Miss Sheng, this evidence is enough to put him away for life, but it might implicate the Gu group, and even, Mr. Gu Qi," I sneered. "What does the life or death of the Gu family have to do with me?" As for Gu Qi, I paused, the image of him shielding Bai Wei and her son flashing before my eyes, my heart feeling as if pricked by a needle. Let the law take its course. The next day, Gu Tingfeng was taken away by the police directly from his office on the top floor of the Gu group. The news exploded like a bombshell, instantly igniting the entire city. Gu Group Chairman Gu Tingfeng suspected of multiple felonies, arrested. Shocking turn of events in the wealthy family. The Gu Empire on the brink of collapse. Former business tycoon, actually a murderer. Public opinion is in an uproar, with Gu Group stock price hitting the limit down at market open, plunging into chaos. I sat in my office, watching the news footage of Gu Tingfeng being escorted into a police car in a sorry state, feeling no sense of satisfaction, only a cold, numb emptiness. My parents' vengeance was finally avenged, but why did my heart still feel so hollow? My phone rang. It was Gu Qi. I hung up directly and blocked the number. A few minutes later, the office door was flung open. Gu Qi stood at the entrance, his entire being radiating hostility, his eyes bloodshot. "Xing Anxian, are you satisfied now?" His voice was hoarse, carrying a bone-chilling coldness. I looked up, meeting his gaze calmly. "President Gu, this is the Xing family's territory. please leave." He stepped closer, his overwhelming presence almost suffocating, bringing down Gu Tingfeng and destroying the Gu family. "Is this the result you wanted? This is what the Gu family deserves." I stood up, confronting him. "Including you, Gu Qi. Using me, deceiving me. I haven't settled that score with you yet." He suddenly grabbed my wrist, his grip so tight it felt like he might crush my bones. "I never intended to hurt you, let go." I struggled with all my might, but couldn't break free. "Gu Tingfeng has fallen, the Gu family is finished. What's next?" He closed in on me, his breath hot on my face. "Are you not even going to spare Xiaozhe and me?" Xiaozhe, the name of that illegitimate child, seeing the undisguised protectiveness in his eyes, the last trace of that ridiculous affection in my heart, was completely extinguished. "That depends on whether you stand in my way," I said coldly. Gu Qi stared at me intently, his gaze as if he wanted to skin me alive and tear me apart. After a long while, he suddenly smiled, a cold, cruel smile. "Fine, very well, Xing Anxian, since it's come to this, don't blame me." He abruptly released me, turned around, and strode away. I watched his figure disappear through the doorway, then slowly sank back into the chair, my entire body trembling with cold. I knew there was no turning back between Gu Qi and me. What lay ahead would be a fight to the death. What I didn't know was that shortly after Gu Qi left, a piece of negative news about me quietly climbed to the top of the trending list. Shocking, the mastermind behind the collapse of the Gu family is actually the Xing family heiress, willing to frame and slander for power. The accompanying image is a blurry photo of me and Gu Qi, confronting each other outside the chemical plant. Along with some carefully edited, out-of-context so-called evidence, Gu Qi's counterattack came as expected, swift and dirty. The slanderous hot search, propelled by capital, remained prominently displayed. Trolls and netizens unaware of the truth began launching an overwhelming wave of online harassment against me. Some even started doxing my address and harassing my family. The stock price of Xingshi Group was also affected and began to decline. Several old-timers on the board who had long been dissatisfied with my rapid rise began to stir, applying pressure both openly and behind the scenes. As I observed this familiar tactic of manipulating public opinion, a cold, mocking smile formed in my heart, truly a chip off the old block, just as despicable as Gu Tingfeng and Gu Qiyan. But I was no longer the Xing Anxian of my past life, who knew only how to endure in silence. I immediately summoned the public relations and legal departments of the Xing Group to convene an emergency meeting. First, in the name of Xingshi Group and myself, issue the strongest possible legal letters, sue all the marketing accounts and key troll leaders who have spread rumors and slander. The list has already been compiled by the technical department, leave no one out. Second, contact all our media partners, release the official details of Gu Tingfeng's arrest, along with partial evidence of his years of illegal operations, tax evasion, and even involvement with organized crime. Stir the waters until they're muddy. Third, I turned to the head of the technical department, take the gift package I had you prepare earlier and release it in batches, at different times, using anonymous IPs. The head of the technical department understood immediately and nodded firmly. After the meeting, I sat alone in my office, gazing at the gray sky outside the window. My phone vibrated on the desk. It was a series of abusive messages from several unknown numbers. I deleted and blocked each one. My expression unreadable. Gu Qi, you think you can crush me with public opinion? Let's see whose hand holds the stronger cards. That afternoon, public opinion began to shift subtly. First, several highly influential official media outlets reposted the police announcement regarding Gu Tingfeng's alleged involvement in multiple serious crimes, solidifying his guilt immediately. Some dark secrets about the internal mismanagement, nepotism, and illicit profit transfers within the Gu Group over the years began circulating online. Among them were the absurd incidents during Gu Qian's tenure and details of how Lu Yuru exploited her status as Mrs. Gu to amass wealth. The public's attention began to shift. So the Gu family is this rotten? It's rotten to the core. Looking at it this way, Xing Anxian might really have been forced to retaliate. Gu Qi jumping out to sling mud at this moment. Is he trying to shift the blame? However, this was just the appetizer. Late at night, when most netizens were about to rest, an encrypted forum suddenly exploded with several shocking revelations, spreading at an astonishing speed across major social media platforms. The first one, Gu Qi's love child confirmed, the identity of the birth mother by Wei exposed, not some white moonlight, but a scheming woman who climbed into bed by any means necessary back in the day. Attached were photos of Bai Wei frequenting nightclubs in her early years, being ambiguous with different men, as well as chat records of her privately contacting paparazzi in an attempt to expose the child's identity to demand a huge sum of hush money. Second, Gu Qi collaborates with stepmother Lu Yuru. Is the 3-year coma and awakening real or fake? In-depth reveal of the Gu family eldest son's path to seizing power. This article provides a detailed timeline analysis of Gu Qi's actions after awakening, suggesting that he had long been colluding with Lu Yuru, and may have even faked his coma to eliminate Gu Tingfeng and Gu Qiyan in one fell swoop, monopolizing the Gu family's assets. Although direct evidence is lacking, the analysis is logical and highly inflammatory. Third, the true face of the devoted husband, Gu Qi's secret overseas accounts exposed, mysterious flow of massive funds revealed. This post reveals several offshore accounts linked to Gu Qi, along with records of large fund transfers, with the timing coinciding precisely with his awakening, sparking widespread speculation. With the release of these 3 bombshells, the entire internet exploded. Oh my god, the information is overwhelming. Gu Qi is no good either, bastard, schemer, and transferring assets. This whole family, from the old to the young, are all rotten to the core. So Xing Anxian is actually the biggest victim, tricked into marriage and used by this father-son duo. No wonder she fought back. Who wouldn't go crazy in her place? The tide of public opinion instantly reversed. Those who had cursed me the most fiercely before were now sympathizing with me and supporting me just as passionately. The filth Gu Qi tried to splash on me has been thrown back at him tenfold, 100-fold. I watched the scrolling comments on the computer screen, then closed it with an expressionless face. Can't handle it already, Gu Qi. This is only the beginning. The next day, I made a high-profile appearance at the Xing Group press conference. Facing the barrage of cameras and flashing lights below, I wore a sharp black suit, my makeup flawless, and my presence commanding. First, regarding the recent false statements circulating online about me and the Xing Group, our legal department has initiated full legal proceedings. We will pursue this matter to the end and show no leniency. My voice was clear and resolute, each word carrying weight. Secondly, I hereby formally announce that the Xing Group will completely terminate all cooperation with the Gu Group. We have already initiated proceedings to hold the Gu Group accountable for their overdue payments and breach of contract. The journalists below erupted in an uproar. Miss Sheng, what about your marital relationship with Mr. Gu Qi? I directly cut off the question, raising my left hand. The ring finger was completely bare. My marriage to Mr. Gu Qi began as a meticulously planned deception. My gaze swept across the room, laced with icy mockery. Now that the truth is out, this farce should come to an end. I have already entrusted my lawyer to file for divorce in court. As for Mr. Gu and his mistress and illegitimate child, I paused, my tone dripping with disdain. I wish them a lifetime of being bound together, 100 years of marital bliss. With that, I turned and walked away decisively, ignoring the media frenzy erupting behind me. The press conference had a significant effect. Xing Corporation's stock price stopped falling and rebounded, and my decisiveness and firmness won market recognition. Meanwhile, the Gu family had completely fallen into an abyss. Their stock price hit consecutive limit downs, partners terminated contracts one after another, banks pressed for loan repayments, internal employees were panicked, and a wave of resignations emerged. Gu Qi was overwhelmed with troubles, trying to stabilize the situation, but faced with the overwhelming decline and endless scandals, it was already beyond remedy. Just then, I received an unexpected package. Inside was a stack of photos and a paternity test report. In the photos were Gu Qiyan and Lin Anxi. They had actually sneaked back to the country and were hiding in a filthy, chaotic urban village. Both looked haggard, fighting and hurling insults at each other over money, appearing utterly deranged. And that paternity test report revealed, the child Lin Anxi had miscarried back then, shared no blood relation with Gu Qiyan. Looking at this report, I suddenly remembered the flicker in Lin Anxi's eyes in my past life, when she wept and complained to Gu Qiyan after the miscarriage. So that's how it is. What a clever move of swapping the beams and pillars. She had no idea whose child it was, or even if she knew it wasn't, she still wanted to pin it on Gu Qiyan, but by a twist of fate, she miscarried, which only solidified the accusation that I drove her to her death. I let out a cold laugh and anonymously sent this gift to Lu Yuru, who was still in prison, hoping her son would save her. It said that after seeing it, Lu Yuru howled like a madwoman in her cell all night long, completely losing her mind. As for Gu Qiyan and Lin Anxi, I merely, accidentally, revealed their hiding spot to a few loan sharks chasing after them. Later, I heard that Gu Qiyan had one of his legs broken by the debt collectors, and he and Lin and she were thrown out of the urban village, reduced to beggars on the streets. Fighting each other to the point of bloodshed over a mouthful of spoiled food, they hated each other, tormented each other, struggling in the mud, unable to live or die. This brought me more satisfaction than simply killing them outright. After dealing with these scum, I poured all my energy into the final sprint of the new energy project. This achievement belongs entirely to me, Xing Anxian, and has nothing to do with the Gu family anymore. The project was a huge success. On the day of the launch event, Xing Corporation's stock price soared. I stood under the spotlight, basking in the attention and praise of the crowd. I knew I had firmly established myself. No longer someone's daughter, someone's fiancée, or someone's wife. I am simply Xing Anxian. After the launch event, in the backstage lounge, I encountered Gu Qi, who had come uninvited. He had lost a lot of weight, his suit hanging loosely on his frame, with heavy exhaustion and defeat in his eyes. The former pride and aloofness of the Gu family's eldest son were long gone, and Xian, his voice was hoarse, carrying a hint of pleading. Let's talk, Mr. Gu, there's nothing for us to talk about. I sat before the dressing table, leisurely removing my earrings, not even bothering to spare him a glance. The Gu family is finished, I admit it. He walked behind me, looking at my cold reflection in the mirror. I wronged you, used you, kept things from you, but I've long had no feelings for Bai Wei, and I had no idea about Xiaozhe's existence before. I did what I did only to protect the child. After all, he's innocent, I scoffed, finally meeting his gaze through the mirror. Gu Qi, spare me your hypocritical act. Your Gu family is rotten to the core. Gu Tingfeng is a murderer, Lu Yuru is a poisoner, Gu Qiyan is a foolish and venomous fool, and you? I stood up, turned around, and faced him directly, my gaze as sharp as an icy blade. You are selfish, cold-hearted, and will stop at nothing to achieve your goals, even using marriage as a tool for your schemes. What essential difference is there between you and that scum of a father of yours? Coming to me with all this now is only because you've lost, because you have nothing left, and you're looking for a final shred of comfort or a chance to make a comeback. I took a step closer, my tone biting and cruel. Let me tell you, Gu Qi, you don't deserve it. His face was deathly pale, his lips trembling, as if my merciless words had pierced him to the bone. I really, he tried to explain. Really what? I cut him off. My eyes filled with disgust. Really had feelings for me? Don't say such disgusting things. Your sincerity is worth even less than your father's money or your brother's brains. I picked up my handbag and prepared to leave. Xing Anxian, he roared behind me, his voice filled with final desperation and despair. Do you have to be so heartless? I paused in my steps, slowly turning to face him, looking into his bloodshot eyes. I felt nothing but sheer absurdity. Heartless. I repeated the word as if hearing the greatest joke of all time. Gu Qi, you want to talk about feelings with me? Are you even worthy? He took a step forward, trying to grab my arm, his tone carrying an almost obsessive urgency. Yes, I used you, I hid things from you, but we were still married. Do you think any other man would dare take you after leaving me? Xing Anxian, your reputation precedes you, ruthless and cunning. What wealthy family would dare marry a woman like you? I looked at him, at the deep-seated arrogance and prejudice rooted in feudal patriarchy in his eyes, as if staring at a disgusting pool of muck. In this day and age, he still thinks divorce is a stain on a woman, that I need to rely on a man, need to be wanted. The last shred of patience in my heart was exhausted. I suddenly raised my hand. Smack, a resounding slap landed hard on his face, cutting off his foolish words. Gu Qi's head snapped to the side from the force, a clear red handprint instantly blooming on his cheek. He covered his face, staring at me in disbelief as if I had committed some unforgivable act. Gu Qi, I shook my slightly numb wrist, my voice cold enough to freeze ice. Put away your nauseating feudal mindset. Xing Anxian, have never been anyone's appendage. I took a step forward, staring straight into his shocked eyes, each word clear and sharp as I hammered them into his ears. Do you think I agreed to the marriage alliance back then because I loved you, or because the Xing family needed the Gu family? Let me tell you, neither. If it weren't for leveraging the Gu family's influence to bring down Gu Tingfeng faster and uncover the truth about my parents, with the kind of rotten-to-the-core trash your Gu family is, would you even deserve to have your name tied to mine? Xing Anxian, marriage, I sneered, my eyes filled with utter disdain and disgust. That has always been nothing but a burden to me, a tool, never something I sought after. now that the tool has served its purpose. The burden should be discarded. Gu Qi stood frozen in place, his face shifting from red to pale, then from pale to ashen, as if he were truly seeing me for the first time. His eyes were filled with immense shock and a kind of bewildered confusion, as though his very beliefs had crumbled. The laughable notions he clung to about marriage and a woman's worth, the last shreds of dignity he relied on, were utterly shattered by my words. His lips trembled, but not a single word escaped them. I looked at his utterly dejected state, feeling not a single ripple of emotion in my heart, only complete disgust. Gu Qi, don't ever show your face in front of me again, just the sight of you makes me sick. Later, I heard that Gu Qi was having a very hard time. The Gu family went bankrupt and liquidated, leaving him saddled with astronomical debts. The once high and mighty eldest son of the Gu family had to sell everything he could, including the old mansion left by his mother, which he had once cherished deeply, just to barely cover part of the whole. He tried to make a comeback, seeking out all his former friends, who had once called him brother, but when the tree falls, the monkeys scatter, and when the wall collapses, everyone pushes it down. No one was willing to touch his mess, and even fewer dared to risk offending me or the now thriving Xing family by helping him. He could only start from the very bottom, working for small companies or taking on scattered projects, but he was accustomed to giving orders, and the arrogance in his bones, along with his noble air that clashed with his surroundings, caused him to stumble at every turn. Add to that his reputation, marriage fraud, exploiting women, ruthlessness, and an illegitimate child who couldn't be brought into proper society. Any family with even a bit of influence avoided him like the plague. The wealthy socialites who once flocked to him now regarded him as a venomous snake or a ferocious beast. Once, at a small industry networking event, someone saw him trying to strike up a conversation with a Miss Liu, whose family was in the building materials business. That Miss Liu had once been one of Gu Qi's most fervent admirers, but at that moment, Miss Liu merely cast him a disdainful glance, as if afraid of touching something filthy, and quickly took 2 steps back, linking arms with her male companion beside her. Her voice was neither too loud nor too soft, just enough for those around to hear. "TSK, isn't this young Master Gu, what, not going to find your white moonlight and child, and instead coming to a place like this? How laughable, you were already crushed by a bastard child and a stepmother when you were young, yet you still haven't learned your lesson and ended up doing something like this. You really deserve it." A wave of suppressed snickers rippled through the crowd. Gu Qi's face turned ashen at that moment, his fists clenched so tightly they trembled, yet he couldn't utter a single word in rebuttal. In the end, under the gazes of pity and contempt from those around him, he made a humiliating exit. Similar incidents happened more than once. Later, it was said that he moved to an urban village, crammed into a dilapidated apartment building with people he would never have glanced at twice in the past. He toiled day in and day out just to make ends meet, his hair graying prematurely, making him look over a decade older than his actual age. As for that illegitimate child, Xiaozhe, it was rumored that due to the poor living conditions, he fell ill and couldn't afford proper treatment, leaving him with lingering health issues. Unable to endure such hardship, Bai Wei, one night, took what little savings Gu Qi had left and ran off with another man, never to return. She left Gu Qi behind with a sickly, resentful son, both of them struggling in the mire. The man who once schemed everything, believing he could control the entire situation, ended up abandoned by all, left with nothing, stripped of even the most basic dignity, and became the very person he had always looked down upon. After that, news of him became increasingly rare. Perhaps he was lingering in some obscure corner, barely surviving, or perhaps, who even cares? Occasionally, when I come across reports about the Xing family or myself in financial news, I might even pause for a moment, remembering that there was once such a person, but that's all there is to it. He has long been left far behind me, becoming a trivial, even somewhat sordid footnote in my glorious life, not even worth the breath to mention. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.